Look at us now, tip to tip.
Ooh, Jesus.
Start for morning combat.
Do you want a margarita?
Yes!
My God!
It's us doing what we love. But it's time to bang. Oh, yeah, it's IFW Fight Week. We're at war with Iran. Jon Jones is retired. Ngannou's persona non grata in the UFC. And Shin still hasn't found a place to live in Texas. Hey, this is Morning Combat, and we are back with an absolute bang. Oh, yeah, Dana White's promoting the biggest boxing match in 10 years. What a time to be alive. It's Monday, June 23rd, 2025. BC LT and Luke Thomas of DC fame. I don't have to say this. You already know this. This might be one of the most important episodes in MK history. We got a lot of shit to get into, brother.
It's a big one today, boys, lady, gentlemen. Glad you could be here for it.
Children.
How about that?
Children.
And by the way, BC, even though I got a terrible night of sleep, I do feel good today. I know I was in a surly mood on Friday because I also had a bad night of sleep before that. So yeah. I just want to tell you I'm sorry about that. Sorry to all the MK fans as well. But I got to say, I had a rough night of sleep last night. However, today, as you described it, relatively monumental importance in the history of MK. So let's do this.
Yeah, let's get loose here. Let's get loose in the bullpen. We can't even fit Jake Paul into this rundown. There's so much going on. I mean, that might be a win right there.
Hey, real quickly, how does that fight end? Very quickly, how does it end, BC? How does it end?
Sad and disappointing.
No. Decision? Or what?
Jake by decision. How about that?
I think that's right. That's right.
There we go. There we go. What a time. Ilia Topuria fighting for the lightweight title this weekend. We're fired up today, though, to set the stage for that. Look back on what happened. Canelo Crawford had the first two stops on their press tour. Obviously, the breaking news involving Jon Jones, Tom Aspinall, Francis Ngannou, and everything else going on in combat sports. We in this, baby. We're right here. We're ready to go. Why don't you follow the show? Why don't you follow us on social media? If you could like this on YouTube, subscribe. If you're listening on the DraftKings Network and watching, welcome. Same thing if you're a podcast-only listener. We appreciate you, too. You can follow our YouTube channels as well. Quick hello to the third man on our team, the producer, director, bong enthusiast, and son of a one-time horned-up Australian. It's Luke Nocita of the Main Card Minute. And LIL, I got to thank you and Gaff for welcoming me so kindly to the Main Card Minutes live undercard fest on Saturday when we watched Red Rocket Ronda get it handed to her. I mean, this was wild.
We had a great time watching some bad women's MMA. It was a fun time. Luke, we'd love to have you on sometime.
I don't join the parties of peasants.
All right. Well, either way, great betting week too, by the way. Went 6 for 6 on the main card. Perfect week. Did a funnel after that. You got to do a funnel if you got a perfect week. So we had a good time.
Do you ever show your girlfriend the fights that you give up time for to watch? It's like honey,
baby, here's Kevin Lee, future champion.
Honey, you know how you wanted me to spend time with you at the spa? No, I watched. I watched. What's his name? Abdi Abdel
Wahab.
Yeah, Hamdi.
Yeah.
Come on,
Hamdi Abdel Wahab. It's like I watched him instead of giving you the business. I hope you can understand that Hamdi Abdel Wahab was more important.
To be fair, Hamdi was at noon. She was at work. I mean, but yeah, to each his own.
There you go. Thank you for joining here today, Nocita. Wow, we got a great show planned for you. And look, quickly, did you watch Game 7 last night? Halliburton's never going to walk again, and the Thunder are champions.
I did not watch the Game 7. However, what I can say is I saw a hilarious tweet from someone saying that they don't even have clubs in Oklahoma City. Those dudes are going to be partying at TGI Fridays. And I was like, yeah, that's
about right.
I've been to Oklahoma many times. My dad is from Oklahoma, and the only thing I can associate with it is bail bondsmen and pawn shops as far as the eye can see. Shouts to Lawton, Oklahoma. Easily one of the worst places on earth.
That's where you and your brother were accosted by a group of scoundrels, correct?
Yes, we were beaten up and mugged when I was, I think I was, 12, 13, something like that.
Couldn't your dad have used his international foreign connections to at least tell them the truth about 9/11? I mean, what like,
This is pre 9/11, but you know what? This might have been right around the time of the first of the World Trade Center bombings, but no one cares about those, I guess. So whatever.
Just about a half hour before that Scud missile went into the Pentagon. Hey, this is Morning Combat. We got your back on everything, by the way. All right, it's a big week for the show, and shout out to one of our incredible sponsors. We're talking about Cuervo. Now's a good time to remember where tequila's story truly began. In 1795, Cuervo invented tequila, and since then, you already know this. Cuervo has stayed true to its roots. Same family, same land, same passion. That's what I'm talking about. 230 years later, Cuervo's still here in every pour, in every margarita, in every celebration. So enjoy that tequila that started it all. Yes, it's Cuervo, the tequila that invented tequila. ProximoCuervo.com. Please drink responsibly. Luke Thomas, if the people don't already know, then they do now. This Thursday, live from New York at a special time. We've changed it. 12 noon Eastern time this Thursday. It's a UFC 317 pregame preview on Morning Combat, brought to you by Cuervo with BC, LT, and the one and only Iceman himself, Chuck Mindenhall, who's back from the border. Yes. The leader of Team Ice. Luke, you got to be fired up for this on Thursday. This is what we do. This is our life. This is our passion, right?
That's right. A little bit later than normal, but should be a fun time just the same. Noon on Thursday. Join us. Be there. It's still a brunch time show. You know what I mean? We just pushed it back an hour. That's it.
There it is. Whoomp. In fact, there it is. No show on Friday this week, but you're going to get a lot of us on this show on our own channels. Lot to get into. It is UFC 317 fight week, so get fired the hell up. Quick reminder, merch. Hey, how about morningcombat.shop? Yes, your new home for Morning Combat merch. It's Long Island Luke on the other end of that call. So get on today. I believe we are in the final days of our original June exclusive presentation, but we've got fresh stuff coming in July. So check out morningcombat.shop right now. Long Island Luke, give me one word to describe merch sales at the moment.
On fire. Don't miss your chance to get the Skits and Bits shirt. That's all I'm saying. All right?
That's what he's saying. That's exactly what he's saying right there. Also, you want to reach the show, morningcombat@gmail.com. Tell Mikey we said hi. Fan subs, dead wrongs, and you showing him your pipe. All right, let's get into it. Breaking news over the weekend that really threatened to take over the weekend, and I think it did. Jon Jones announces his retirement at the age of 37, despite what we believe to be record money on the table for a super fight against interim champion Tom Aspinall at heavyweight. That is more than 2 years in the making. We link to that also the latest legal trouble. So this is 2 years after Tom Aspinall said on that podcast with Bisping and Anthony Smith that he would retire Jon Jones without even fighting him. That's exactly what happened as Dana White relayed this surprising news at the UFC Baku press conference in Azerbaijan in the middle of the night over there on the European Asian border. Less than 1 hour later, reports surfaced of a criminal summons filed in Albuquerque Metro Court accusing Jon Jones of a misdemeanor charge of fleeing the scene of an accident in February after he allegedly left a half-naked woman high on mushrooms in the passenger seat of his car, leaving the scene of an accident.
Her car, I believe, not his.
Her car, leaving her, not knowing how she got there. And then there's deeper details, including Jones calling her 34 times over, I believe, the next 12 hours. Luke, let's get serious here. What does it say about Jon Jones's true legacy that the end of an unrivaled 17-year pro career would come, let's say it, in the most Jon Jones way possible?
What does it say? Boy, that is a big question. You know what's kind of funny, BC? I found out about this news while I was doing my UFC Baku post-fight show. And I was not anticipating it at all. Shouts to everyone who tuned in. Thank you very much. And I had to react live. But I noticed it didn't even occur to me, quite frankly, but I didn't react to, one of the most seminal moments of my career, quite honestly. It's kind of stood the test of time a little bit, is the fact when he dunked on me at I forget what event that was. It was the DC, it was the rematch with DC, I believe.
UFC 214.
214, that's it. You're right. I think it was 2017, if memory serves. Because it's funny, because even to this day, people will see me and ask me about it. But if you recall, BC, do you recall what I asked him? Do you recall what I asked him that day? Do you remember?
You asked him how he would look back on his 20s, Luke.
Yeah. The reason why I asked that question, I wouldn't have asked it today, even if we had a different relationship with John. But the reason why I asked it at that time, and I'm getting to answer your question, BC, but the reason why I asked it at that time was because personally, I'd seen it for myself to a degree, and I definitely seen it in some of my friends who had made some bad choices in their 20s, right around the time they turned 30, 31 or so. They began to really clean up their act, right? These are guys who had DUIs. These are guys who had various run-ins with the law. They ended up kind of figuring it all out, getting it out of their system, and then turning the corner. And I kind of wondered if he was in a similar place at that time. And of course, we now know he was not at that place. But I think what's interesting is here he is at the end of his career, and he's still exactly in the same place he was at the time that I asked that question, banging on 40's door, and there has been no demonstrable improvement to the things he does at all. And in fact, what's kind of interesting about it is you could look the other way, or at least at a bare minimum, there was a more of a duality of a story when he was leaning into how good he was at the time, right? When he was beating up Daniel Cormier, when he was doing incredible things at light heavyweight. But you didn't even get that in this case. You got, I think the way I would look at this situation is, BC, is not only did I finally get an answer to that question, which was there was no ability by him whatsoever to reflect on his behavior and the pain that he causes others and the discomfort that he causes others and the frustration and frankly the rank disappointment that he causes in others. No reflection on that whatsoever. So I'm glad that now, 8 years later, I'm getting an answer to the question in a very full-throated way, but more to the point, this is just, as you indicated, it's just the most Jon Jones thing ever. It's just the most an unceremonious ending. Well, UFC President Dana White is announcing it at a post-fight event where a dictator basically rented the organization. And the fan base barely knew how to react to MMA as if they'd never even seen it before, right?
And they walked out before those two African-American gentlemen entered the main event.
They did. A bunch of them left after Fiziev fought. That's absolutely true. But that happened while I think my big takeaway from this, BC, is I don't speak for the fans. I could never in a million years imagining doing so. But if I'm reading the tea leaves, it seems like this event, yes, it frustrated them, but it kind of demoralized them to a degree. I mean, that's how lasting this damage was, while hurting Tom Aspinall's career. All the while, new criminal charges, which his lawyer denies, and these are just allegations, but they just sound eerily similar to various other things that Jon Jones has done throughout the course of his career. My big takeaway is, BC, I'm transported right back to 2017, asking him this question, finally getting an answer. And the answer is he's walking out of this organization the exact same guy and the exact same person he walked in. Congratulations, everyone. You've just now endured the Jon Jones experience.
Well, wow. That's well said and also accurate. For the record, this is a misdemeanor charge hanging over Jon. If we can show the tweet, Long Island Luke, of Jon's reaction, or the cryptic tweet reacting to the allegations against him, he put out a quote that said, "Keep in mind, even the media can get it wrong sometimes if they don't have all the facts. Don't believe everything you read online." Dana White was interviewed Sunday by Oscar Willis about the allegations and asked if they're related to his retirement. And Dana somewhat aggressively shot that down, said people will probably believe that, but it's not true. And Aaron Bronstetter this morning tweeted out a statement from Jones's attorney, Christopher Dodd, who said, quote, "As Jon's lawyer, I am stunned by the Albuquerque Police Department's decision to charge him in this new case. In the thousands of cases I've handled in my career, I've never seen a case as strange and unwarranted as this one. Jones was not driving that night. He wasn't in the car. It appears that an intoxicated woman used a false allegation against Jon to avoid being arrested for DWI, and the police fell for it." That's a portion of the quote, but it's good to get that out there because, Luke, there are so many layers to this story that it's insane. Yes, the fact that there is something, criminal or a legal issue attached to this is the most Jon Jones thing ever. And this is such a big topic that we're going to have two topics today to kick off the show. So let's pause for a second on the heavyweight division and all this meant, for that and where Aspinall goes next. But first and foremost, look, I mean, I wrote a, aggressive column lambasting both Jones and and Dana White and UFC and TKO for the way this entire heavyweight reign of enabling has been handled for Jon. And I did get a lot of pushback from, pro UFC and Dana fans. It's like, what's Dana supposed to do? They offered this guy record money. They gave him a chance to think about it, and he turned it down. End of story. Let's move on. Only, Luke, obviously it's not that easy because of all the unprecedented levels of enabling that went into this, how this affects every other fighter in the division, including Aspinall and his earning power, how this affects the look of the company in terms of whether they do have their shit together in 2025 or not, or whether they're just set up to be run on autopilot to continue to extract value. So let's show first the split screen of Dana just 6 months ago compared to the Dana that we saw Saturday night announcing this news.
Jon Jones behind the scene is not a guy that turns down fights.
Would you guarantee 100% we see that fight?
Yeah, I'll say 100%. Jon Jones called us last night and retired. Jon Jones is officially retired. Tom Aspinall is the heavyweight champion of the UFC.
Luke, there's no other way to say it. Because this has gone on for over 2 years, Jon won the heavyweight championship right after Francis Ngannou left the company in early 2023 against Cyril Gane in March. He gets injured shortly after. He's out for 20 months. Tom Aspinall wins the interim title in that spot in November of 23 that was supposed to be Jones versus Stipe. The UFC then unconsciously not only doesn't strip Jon, they don't force Stipe to fight Tom Aspinall. You know the story. We wait another additional year for Jones versus Stipe, 3 years removed from fighting, 41 years old. And now, it's not like this is December 1st of last year. This is 6 months, 7 months later. Well, do the math. 7 months later after Jon won in NYC at MSG. And now he's done. Luke, when you look at this, this is an embarrassing debacle in my eyes in which everyone deserves a good bit of blame. How would you push back, if you will, on anyone that says this is the greatest fighter of all time? It's his choice whether he wants to continue going. He said no. Shut up, guys.
These are people who don't think much about the world, right? These are not people who are critical thinkers. These are not people who have much to say that's interesting at all. The people who would make an argument like this probably will go along with what any powerful person tells them about anything, because they're just vessels of repeating those things. They're not people who can come up with their own original ideas to a large degree. That's the first thing I'd say. The second thing I'd say is, yeah, you're right. He can retire. I don't care that he retired. We've been over this a million times. And again, it's not one or the other. People being like, well, the UFC has a role to play here. Fine. I'm absolutely not in any way discounting that. But the reality is, if you want to listen, there are bigger issues at play. These contracts that these guys sign are long. Jon Jones is better suited for fighting the KSIs of the world now than he is the Tom Aspinalls, to be honest with you. KSI is a little bit of an exaggeration, but if he had the freedom to go and fight like whatever he wanted to do, and it wasn't necessarily other top fighters, but he was contractually open, I don't think I'd have an issue with that. I wouldn't be necessarily the top consumer of it, but that's different. But he's been the champion. But of course, BC, it does go back to a little bit some of these broader considerations. Can you get the same money put on your deal if you don't have the belt, or if the belt is not up for grabs in the UFC? There are some larger contractual issues in the way in which money is earned in this organization that does bear repeating. But at the same time, like, the reality is very simple here. He clearly articulated that he didn't have a desire to fight the best. He hung on to the belt, and more to the point, we had to go through the kabuki theater of his title defense against Stipe Miocic, meaning anything at all. It meant nothing in the end. It was just a cash grab. It was just, that was him going to the ATM of the fandom and then pulling cash out. There was nothing given of any kind of substance whatsoever in return. And I'm supposed to honor this as like some kind of grand achievement or give back to the fans. Show of fucking hands. Who enjoyed the heavyweight chapter of this guy's career? Because I saw the light heavyweight chapter. That was highly enjoyable. In fact, BC, if I may say something, this is kind of like the really unfortunate reality of it all. MMA could have used, for example, I was around for Jon Jones's light heavyweight run. And that was, a moment in time. And also, as you know, BC, to make a big run through a division, you need a big division to run through, right? You need other names that are part of a story that you can set up. And he was just kind of perfectly situated to make that light heavyweight run in the way he did. I saw that, and there were problems with it at that time. Oh my God, there were problems with it at that time. But at the same time, MMA would kind of kill for something like that now. MMA would be really benefited by something like that now. Not all the other issues, but some young, on fire, rising contender / young champion just getting out there and doing something, or more to the point, just somebody leaning into their own greatness in that particular way, daring to be great even late in their career. He doesn't have to, but A, he wore the belt. B, man, MMA could have really used something much more substantive at this point in time. And 3, we had to go through this song and dance over irrelevant matchups that he kind of tried to tell us were something meaningful. He is complicit in all of that as well. Yeah. It was a gigantic waste of time. So my response would be, you can't even listen to people like this, because while they may have more numbers than us and they may have the loud shouting about it, they're just lemmings. They're NPCs. They have no real ability to think on their own. And anybody who does can realize, at a bare minimum, BC, the picture's a little bit more complex than that.
Yeah. I mean, it's embarrassing to me that the UFC would allow this to go on for so long, enable him, and then have it completely blow up in their face because they gave, for the first time, way too much leverage and glazing to the one guy that is, yes, the best fighter of all time, undisputable in my opinion, also arguably the biggest, what if story because of how many headaches he's given them, being stripped of a title 3 separate times, a UFC record for failed drug tests or legal issues. The fact that the legal issues have not stopped. It's pretty much on a set schedule. The fact that they once moved a card during Christmas week from Las Vegas to California after Jones failed the drug test. So this was straight up enabling. How long did we hear Dana White just lie to us? Jon Jones is the pound for pound #1 today, and anyone that says something different, blah, 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 blah. They went to all that length only for Jones to double cross them in the end. So first, let me play here a tweet from Jones explaining his retirement that came out a couple hours after Dana's press conference statement. Today, I'm officially announcing my retirement in the UFC. This decision comes after a lot of reflection, and I want to take a moment to express my deepest gratitude for the journey of everything I've experienced over the years. He would go on to thank Dana, Hunter, UFC, and all that, Lorenzo, and he closes with, as I close this chapter of my life, I look forward to new opportunities and challenges ahead. MMA is always a part of who I am, and I'm excited to see how I can continue to contribute to the sport and acquire our offers in new ways. Thank you for being part of the incredible journey. The best is yet to come, end quote from Jones. Luke, I almost want a lightning round here where I ask you questions and you give me relatively succinct answers.
Okay.
Did Jon Jones retire because of the legal issues? Because he's straight up scared of Aspinall? Because he never intended to fight him? Or is Dana correct that this is a change of heart after he agreed to it just some 6 months ago?
Mostly all of the above. To go succinctly here, Ariel Helwani's reporting is that the UFC made a significant effort to match whatever he was asking for, and that he initially agreed and later changed his mind. If Ariel's reporting it, you can have whatever issues you want with him. I've worked with the guy. If he's reporting it, it is almost certainly true. I would believe that, number one. Second of all, was he scared to fight Tom Aspinall? At the risk involved, yes. I mean, do I think he's abjectly afraid of Tom Aspinall? I wouldn't even make such a claim, but clearly he recognizes that there is significant risk to it, and as a consequence, he just didn't want to deal with the risk. What was the first part of the question, BC?
What is this new allegation, which is a misdemeanor? He is saying he's not guilty. Does this factor in your eyes?
Yeah, did it factor into his retirement? The timing seems way too coincidental. Now, whether it was the reason, whether it was the reason of the straw that broke the camel's back, on the one hand, BC, you just saw Cedric Dumas, who was charged with felony home invasion, and they booked him to a fight. This is a misdemeanor, and John is, to his credit, like every other person charged with a crime, they are guilty until proven innocent. So these are just allegations. But at the same time, people are like, oh, he ran from, or again, alleged to have run from the scene of a car accident. He's done that before, and it's just a misdemeanor. How big a deal is it? Well, first of all, even if it's just that, it's a big deal. Also, what I would say is the nature of the allegations. And again, They're allegations, but the allegations from the ABQ, the police department, are that the woman had, again, for whatever reason, I'm not making allegations, but I'm just trying to recite the facts here. She had no clothes on from the waist down. Last thing she remembered was doing drugs, allegedly at either his place or her place or together at some point, and then there's this alleged, running thing. Again, they also claim that whoever was on the other end of the phone made threats to the police. Now, to your point, Jon's attorney says this is all some kind of a case of mistaken identity. I guess we'll see. But, there's just too many things that rhyme here, and it looks kind of bad. And at a bare minimum, it's yet another distraction. And to the point I raised previously, BC, it just seems like this dude is not only living a different life than the one that a fighter would live, he's actually kind of, in a way, living the same life he's always lived, just with a little bit more money and a little bit more enabled along the way. It's all those things.
And apparently, according to Long Island Luke, you said guilty until proved.
Excuse me. I apologize. Let me go back and correct.
I didn't know if you were being cheeky.
Yes. No, I was not being cheeky. I apologize. Of course, I don't want to misstate it. Jon is innocent until proven guilty. These are just allegations. These are charges. No one has proven his guilt in any way whatsoever at this point.
Yeah, this is all part of the story, though, just the same, without question. Luke, let's stay on this rapid fire thing. You get people saying, look, don't you guys see this? He just doesn't want to fight Aspinall. He's got legal issues. He's going to step away now. He's going to come back when things change. He'll fight whoever is the newest champion. Maybe he'll fight Poatan. Luke, does Jon Jones ever fight again in the UFC?
He might. People saying that Tom Aspinall, if he loses, which, by the way, I'm not one of these guys who believes that he automatically loses, Jon does, to Tom. I don't believe that. There's a lot about Tom we simply don't know. But to that point, if Tom loses, do I think he comes back? I do. If Francis were to come back and they could make some super fight, maybe that'd be interesting. Or if somehow to your point, the Poatan fight becomes some kind of renewed effort that they could get behind, I think that they will. But for the time being, yes, he is going to lay low. I doubt it's the last time you see him. Possible, but I doubt it.
And look, again, he could do what he wants, but retire after the Stipe fight. We would have ripped him for 3 weeks. We would have gotten over it. Aspinall would have been full champion. He probably would have fought 2 or 3 times since then. But the fact that he didn't retire then when he had these questions, the fact that the UFC allowed it to go on so long, there's blood on all their hands right now. And what a time for this to happen in the midst of what we think is the final stages of negotiation with the likes of Netflix, Prime, ESPN, whoever else, for this new TV deal that they want to get 3 times the valuation, upwards of more than $1 billion per year. So it's all connected. Let's see a tweet from a company man in Daniel Cormier, but Jon Jones's greatest rival. Cormier went live on his YouTube channel and said, by not stepping in the octagon, Jon Jones quit. He didn't want to fight Tom Aspinall. Luke, you already sort of answered that for yourself. Do you think that's fair of DC to say?
I don't know. I can understand why DC would say it. I just think that, again, we've kind of beaten a dead horse at this point. He doesn't need to fight Tom Aspinall. But to the point you raised, BC, if he had done this, fought Stipe, which was a gigantic waste of time. I hope everyone can understand that now. But had he done that and then did what George St. Pierre did after beating Michael Bisping, which was within days, basically returned the belt, that still would have been extremely unsatisfying. But this is what I mean about demoralizing the fan base. This was just dragging on and on and on. I don't care that he didn't want to fight Tom Aspinall. I don't even think his logic about it is necessarily all that problematic, BC. If it is, you know what, this guy doesn't have a huge fan base yet, and he is very dangerous. Why do I want to risk myself against that? I understand that. I actually don't think that that's crazy. But then to just kind of hold on to the belt and then while holding on to it, lobbying for another fight in real time, DC is going to make a series of conclusions based on that. Other people are going to make a series of conclusions based on that. Everything goes back to the fact that there was this wasted effort in this second weight class campaign over and over again, delays with injuries, and then on top of it, this rigmarole that's been taking place since November. All of it leads to different conclusions, BC, all of them justified because none of this was necessary.
Yeah, Aspinall becomes the longest reigning interim champion in any division in UFC history, and Jon was 50 days away from passing Cain Velasquez for the longest heavyweight title reign. Let's get one final piece of sound from Dana, who caught up with Oscar Willis on Sunday, who had a pointed question about Jon. Let's listen in.
I'll just come out and ask you, do you think he's ducking Tom Aspinall?
No. Jon Jones I said it a million times. I'll say it again. He's never ducked anybody other than that one goofy time with the Chael Sonnen thing. He's never ducked anybody. And, I think the reality is whatever changed his mind with this fight, I don't know. You'd have to ask him that. But, he's 38 years old, and I don't know.
Do you think if it was someone like Alex Pereira, he would fight them? And it's maybe Tom that he specifically doesn't fancy the matchup, doesn't fancy the age difference?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to these questions. Only he does. We had the fight done. Listen, our job is to make the biggest fights we can make and the fights that the fans want to see. And that's what we try to do. But the minute somebody starts talking about retirement, my philosophy on that, you should do it.
Yeah, unless you're Habib, by the way, and then we'll drag that out for another year. Interesting stuff there, Luke. It's all.
I do think we should say, BC, because we're like, oh, the UFC plays a role here in how this all went, and they do. Like, there's no way they do. But at the same time, BC, it is a complicated picture because, again, I'm going to trust Ariel's reporting, and if Ariel's reporting is accurate, that they kind of made it perhaps a historically unusual effort at giving him a substantial fight purse. Again, the specifics of which we're not totally clear on, but a pretty big one. Again, he was underpaid through his whole career. I fully believe that. But at the same time, don't you feel like no one wants to give the UFC credit right now, and I understand that. But if they did make a historically unusually high offer to him, that deserves to be noted in the record too, does it not?
They deserve credit for that because that's what we've been pushing them this whole 2 years. Like, pay that man his money. So I agree with that, but it's the by doing unprecedented levels of both glazing and enabling in this case. And the only precedent, I guess, is the fact that John's had this treatment his whole career, although in between times when he was Dana's enemy. But by doing that, they effed it up for everyone else around them. The fans, their own financial bottom line of business decisions, the heavyweight division at large, Tom Aspinall's career arc, all of this collateral damage that it's like you delayed the completely unnecessary Jones Miocic fight the way that you did. And now to delay this and an additional, 7-8 months, and now we don't even have the fight, that also falls on you inevitably. You never put that line in the sand and said, all right, John, we need a decision. Let's go. I feel like there's too much at stake right now with the TV deal, with all that. Now, Luke, I just want a final point I'm going to throw to you. But look, did I say that this was all a ruse? We were getting pro wrestling taken advantage of?
Yeah, you definitely did.
I did, but I don't take embarrassment of that for being wrong, because part of that is built up on the optimism that he couldn't possibly mean what he's saying. The guy who's the greatest fighter of all time, who, if he really didn't want to fight Aspinall, would have retired after Gane when he got hurt, or would have retired in the cage after beating Stipe. But again, the fact that this was allowed to be stretched out, I was almost protecting John and Dana with that type of line of thinking, of saying, this is the only way to justify why this is happening here. And it turns out that wasn't even true. So, Luke, final point here. Final question related to this. If there's any precedent, look, I get that, like what you're saying. John's the greatest fighter of all time. He's a superstar. He's the rare guy today with pay-per-view backbone that can bring in the fans. So I get that he's going to get different and special treatment, and this was. You can't necessarily compare that completely to Jermaine Durandamy getting stripped of her title after 4 months because she refused to fight Cyborg, or Nico Montano after she was hospitalized in that bad weight cut in her first title defense and got stripped. There's also, let's not forget, Lennox Lewis, the all-time great heavyweight champion, who after his final fight, that life and death war with Vitaly Klitschko, he not only decided not to rematch Klitschko, which the fans were calling for, or fight Vladimir Klitschko, he walked away. I get it. We don't talk about that much today. We talk about Lennox Lewis being one of the top 5 greatest heavyweights of all time. So, Luke, with all that said, does this do anything to alter Jon Jones's legacy in any meaningful way? Or will it just be something maybe we bring up 10 years from now? But what we'll also bring up is he's the greatest fighter we've ever seen. He's basically undefeated, and he did win titles in 2 weight classes.
I mean, it's a great question, BC. I can't rapid fire this one, but I'll make it succinct to say the following. I have seen people try to downplay his 205 resume. And listen, everybody who is an elite guy, Silva, Demetrius Johnson, St. Pierre, Jon Jones, Jose Aldo, they all have gimmies somewhere in their run. And they all maybe have gimmies as in easy opponents, or even during their title run. And they might even have a couple of decisions that went their way that maybe shouldn't. Hendricks over, or GSP over Hendricks, John over Dominic Reyes. I mean, Demetrius Johnson over Miguel Torres. You know what I mean? Like, these are things that probably shouldn't have happened, but they did. And they all play a part to a degree in their resume. But the reality is John's 205 resume, if you're asking, give me an example of what weight class dominance looked like, they just don't come much better than that. It's what I said earlier, BC. MMA could really use Jon Jones if he was actually giving a full-throated effort right now. Like, they could use that. They could use somebody who, has that kind of greatness and that kind of commitment that he once had. But I guess those days are long gone. So what I'm going to say is his resume at 205 is so good that he's always going to be in the upper echelon of discussion. What I think is interesting, though, is because he is a two-weight world champion and because there is such controversy and, frankly, almost venom for this guy from the fan base, and at a bare minimum, extraordinary disappointment, any conversation about John's second weight class title, I think, is actually going to be something of either a net wash, where it doesn't actually boost his resume, and in certain cases might even harm his stock because of how, frankly, undistinguished it was, not merely relative to his 205 run, but to any kind of championship run. This is one of the worst runs in championship history for any weight class. In the terms of like what it means, did it add anything to a legacy? How difficult was it? It's got almost nothing to it. And I think that, BC, once you have like, okay, let's make a list of the two-weight world champions, and now you're talking about what this adds to their legacy, there is a strong case to be made that this other weight class actually might serve as something of a net distraction and a net reduction in overall how he is reviewed.
I think that's well said. All right, we hit every angle of that tree. Before we transition, though, into what's next for Aspinall, the UFC heavyweight division, how about Francis Ngannou? I want to tell you this, Luke Thomas. Hotels in Vegas may be booked solid this weekend, but there's one vacancy ahead of UFC 317, that is left to be filled in this IFW main event. A new lightweight champ will be crowned when Ilia Topuria takes on former champion Do Bronx Charles Oliveira. The simplest way to get in on the action and win real cash, yeah, you already knew it. Download that Pick 6 apps from DraftKings right now. DraftKings, the official daily fantasy partner of UFC. It's crazy simple, guys. You're picking more or less on the stats for two or more of your favorite fighters. They give you a number, you're going higher or lower. Will Topuria land a certain number of strikes? How about takedowns? That's what you're looking at. And oh, by the way, Pick 6 brings the upside with payouts up to 500 times. Luke, I already know your Pick 6 lineup is going to have one Topuria on it this weekend.
Yeah, I'm pretty high on Ilia Topuria. And by the way, if you saw the workout over the weekend and the media stuff he did, he looks ready to go. And so obviously, if you want to get in on some of that action, where else are you going to go? DraftKings is the place. So here's what you're going to do, folks. Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app right now. Use the code COMBAT with a K, for all new customers to get a special offer. Ride the upside only on DraftKings Pick 6. The crown is yours. You got a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 plus. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
All right, topic number 2 is the UFC heavyweight fallout to the Jon Jones decision. Luke, I felt like Dana White had the chance to be the hero after this bad news delivered at the Baku press conference when he was asked about a possible Francis Ngannou return to the UFC. Instead, minutes after announcing fans could expect double the amount of Dana White Contender Series nights in their next broadcasting deal, White quickly shot down any thought of Aspinall versus Ngannou by disparaging Francis's integrity. We're going to play the video, and then I'll tee you up for your response. Let's listen in on Dana right now.
Francis says he changed his mind and he would consider coming back to the UFC. Would you be open to having Francis back?
He would consider coming back to UFC if what? One thing I've learned over the years about Francis doesn't always mean what he says publicly. What he says behind the scenes are different than what he says publicly. I'm not a big fan. I would be shocked if Francis ever came back here on lots of different levels. I'm not a fan, and he doesn't always mean what he says publicly.
Look, before I ask you this question, I just want to make one thing clear here for people that are coming after me. I'm not asking for a co-promotion anymore. I don't even think PFL is going to be around in a year, to be honest. I think Francis has one fight left on his PFL deal. John Nash thinks he might already be out of the window of that deal. So let me ask you this. Who is actually benefiting here from Dana White clinging to prior grudges? And how big would an Ngannou return be if he fought Aspinall to repair that hole of this Jones-Aspinall, or maybe even this Jones-Ngannou fight not happening at all?
It's a great question. So let me just say this. As you indicated, folks have been like, hey, is Francis even eligible? That is somewhat up to different legal interpretations. As you indicated, John Nash says there is one interpretation based on how the length of the contract has expired, or reached a certain threshold, I should say, so therefore it's no longer relevant. Certainly, publicly, you've heard mixed messages from Francis. I could come back. How do you know I want to come back? Who says I'm leaving PFL? Kind of playing it coy.
Show that tweet real quick. If you just flash that Ngannou tweet up there.
Yeah, put that up on the screen if you can there, Long Island Luke. Did I ever say I'm coming back? Right, exactly. So he's played a little bit with that as well. But to me, none of that is the point, right? The point is not, is he available? That's not really what Dana said, although he kind of intimated it a little bit, like on a few different levels. He'd be surprised if he got back there. But what Dana basically said there is, without saying it, and we kind of just know this is the way that he goes, and he actually had said previously he'll never be back, not at this press conference, but at another one when ultimately Francis left for the PFL. The reason why the question of whether he's even available isn't even the right one is because the real question is, what would be the good faith argument in service of the fans' interests? What would be that argument that precludes Dana White and the UFC from even being open to the idea, right? Because A, he could still be, difficulty with getting out right now, and it's not really a relevant question. Or B, they could be open to the idea, but maybe Francis wants some absurd number, 30 million, and they're just not going to give him that, right? But even that's not the point. The point is that they're saying they're not even open to the idea. How can you possibly look at the state of this division? And they also said they wanted to make it up to Tom Aspinall. I can scarcely think of a better way to make it up to Tom Aspinall, and frankly to the UFC fans more broadly, and inject some life into this heavyweight division than, if possible, to bring Francis back. But he is saying he's not even open to the possibility of that. There is literally not a single good faith interpretation of that in service of the fans. Ask a basic question, which is what you did. Whose interests are served by icing Francis out? Again, not even entertaining the possibility of it. Is that in Francis's interest? No, but you may not care about those. Is it in UFC's interest? I would actually argue it's not at all. It doesn't service them even a little bit. And more to the point, is it in the interest of MMA fans and UFC fans specifically to not have the other, by the way, the lineal heavyweight champion and the other dominant figure, frankly, in the sport at this time in that weight class, to have them together with Tom Aspinall, perhaps the most exciting talent in all of MMA, who also just happens to be a heavyweight? There isn't one. There isn't an argument you can make in service of that. It is absurd on its face. Now, BC, if they tried to make a deal and Francis wanted, hey, I want green cheese on the moon, well, what can you do? But until we even get to that point, this is not what business that actually has to compete for your dollar would ever say something like this.
Yep.
This is literally in defiance of their very own fan base. What business that has competition breathing down their neck and nipping at their heels would ever say, we don't need the lineal heavyweight champion of the world? Guys, people ask me all the time, what are the problems with monopoly? You're fucking looking at it.
Yeah, you are. And, no one's knocking on the door in terms of UFC's MMA hold and power in the number one slot, unless they continue to do stuff like this, in my opinion. And look, the Jon Jones fallout here is embarrassing. It's ridiculous. It's disappointing. It's everything. And then you package on this absolutely embarrassing quote from Dana that makes it all about him. What? Because Francis is not a good guy? Jon Jones, Conor McGregor. We don't care about who's a good guy in this business for the most part, right? We care about
Great
they make money, can they make fun fights, whatever. It's showing you that this is some shitty personal grudge. Why? And I've had so many people come at me on Twitter in the last 2 days and be like, how are you defending this guy, Francis? He obviously, tried to swerve Dana and lost. Well, I mean, first of all, it feels like he won because he became a free agent, kind of screwed PFL with that big deal, but he made big money in boxing. And I'm not here to try to put Francis up as like the greatest person of all time. He's a human being like all these people. But could Dana have fixed this hole by saying, look, Jon made his decision, but I'm available. My phone's open. I wouldn't be fully against this. Good luck, Tom, to hearing Dana say, we'll make it up to him. Ask Tachi Palace how that worked for them. Okay, please ask them. Here's Dana quickly on whether he regrets enabling Jon Jones for 2 full years.
Dana, right here. Just back to the Tom Aspinall and Jon Jones situation. Do you somewhat regret the time that you gave Jon Jones to make his final decision, that it took so long and the whole division?
Do I regret the time that I gave him?
Yes.
Listen, if you look at what he's accomplished in the sport, no. It is what it is. I obviously feel bad for Tom that he lost all that time and obviously money, but we'll make it up to him. Tom Aspinall's a good guy. He's been incredible through this whole process that we've gone through. He's been willing to do anything, fight him anywhere at any time and do this, and now he's like, I'll fight anybody. You tell me who and I'll fight him. So Aspinall's been great. He's going to be a great heavyweight champion for us, and I'm excited to work with him.
This is why the company's broken right now. And I don't want to hear, well, they're not broken financially. No, they're not, because they're taking from you, the MMA viewer, at every possible, stretch that they can. So it's like Jon Jones does this to you, does this to the company, does this to the fan base, but we're not going to say anything bad about him. But Francis dared to challenge your monopolistic draconian contract system and crawled through the Shawshank pipe to get out. And now he's the biggest evil villain heel of all time. Like, this is embarrassing. Vince McMahon, for all his faults, would not have done this. So Luke Thomas, what is the heavyweight division going to look like moving forward, especially if Ngannou's not going to come in to fill that super fight slot? Who is out there that would interest you for a Tom Aspinall fight? And is there anything the company can actually do to, quote, make it up to him?
They could sign Francis Ngannou. You want to make big. I mean, how big would a Tom versus Francis fight be? There's certainly a debate about that. I don't think it'd be blockbuster in that sense, but it's going to be a lot bigger than him versus Gane. It's going to be a lot bigger than him versus Jailton Almeida. It's going to be a lot bigger than him versus Curtis Blades for the 3rd time, or Kuniev, or anybody else that they Sergey Spivak for however many times they've already fought already. I mean, it's like
the tour of Tafa in the same night. That's
yeah. It's like maybe it's like Tom Aspinall is like 5 fights on the main card, and it's just Tom versus 5 Tafa brothers. That actually would be kind of interesting. But short of that, it's silly a comment, obviously, BC, because this is simply where we are now. I want to be clear about something. Even if they did sign Francis, we all have to recognize that doesn't actually fix the problem. Now, it would fix the short-term problem quite a lot. Because you could get potentially 2, and this is getting a little greedy, but there's a world where you could get 3, but you could certainly get 2 fights between them, and that's not enough to save a division, but it's enough to make for a better calendar year while other things can happen at play. But once those fights are over, you still have this other situation that we have, and I know, for example, one championship just announced today that they're going to have Rug versus Anatoly Malikin for the 2nd time. Either of those guys could be signed to the UFC, and I think that would be a benefit to them. You could get Vadim Nemkov, BC, and I think that would be a benefit to them. There are some other names out there, and maybe long-term, Gable Steveson is a name you could go after that if you really wanted to would be available. But this is the reality. The heavyweight division isn't just a problem in UFC. No. It's a global shortage of talent issue. That's the problem, and that's why this reluctance to even entertain the idea of Francis. It's like, how can you look at the state of the heavyweight division, which to my mind, as someone who's been watching MMA for a very long time, longer than some of you have even been alive, how can you look at the state of this division and say it's in anything other than borderline ruin? You just lost its biggest star. Jon is, for all of the other problems, far and away the biggest star, arguably one of the biggest stars in the company, obviously, certainly at heavyweight. He just walked, or is certainly on ice for the time being, and you don't even have the willingness to be like, okay, what are some other great options for us? Francis is at the top of that list. So you're asking, what can they do? One thing that Dana White said at that UFC Baku presser, BC, and I saw a lot of groans about it, which is they're going to have double, potentially in the next television deal, double the amount of Contender Series fights. Now, if that is done as a real way to comb through talent to see what the diamonds in the rough are, I don't necessarily have a problem with it. I don't know if that's going to solve their problems or not, because another interpretation, BC, could simply be that they want to have double the amount of Contender Series fights just to have double the number of Contender Series fights to meet contract demands for simply more content, right? Which case you're not solving the problem at all. Also, somebody said something to me recently who might have some idea about these matters, that basically anybody who used to be an interested American heavyweight isn't interested anymore. The wrestlers aren't coming over. You're not getting the same kind of talent acquisition, and you're just seeing a bigger focus on places where the American dollar goes a little bit further, overseas talent, Russian talent, Brazilian talent, where they're willing to take, a 10-10 to them might be still a decent to good financial deal, whereas it's just not for an American heavyweight trying to compete in this kind of American market. So the answer is, BC, everyone has a bit of an issue. It just makes the reluctance and the repudiation of Francis Ngannou, frankly, incomprehensible, and I'm going to say unjustifiable.
Well, yeah, not to mention that if Ngannou beat Aspinall, guess who'd be the first person to be tweeting that they want to come back? Jon Jones. Just a heads up on that. Long Island Luke put out a poll to the people asking who they want next for Tom Aspinall. 37% went to Cyril Gane, and Tom is an early offshore book favorite at -350 should they make that Cyril Gane fight. 34% wanted Poatan, 23% Volkov, and 5% Blades. And Luke, you mentioned that good news for one championship. That goes down November 16th in Tokyo when 173 gives a co-main event rematch for the heavyweight title. Rug against Anatoly Malikin, and also Superbon in the main event against Masaki Nori. So check that out for one championship fans out there. All right, though, that is topic number 2. Let's slide into topic number 3, and that is UFC Baku Fight Night, which certainly for a Saturday afternoon card did give us a lot to talk about with that light heavyweight 5-round main event. Luke, this was to decide who's coming and who's going in that light heavyweight title picture, and it turned out Khalil Rountree Jr. showed off that evolution of his maturity following the title loss to Poatan by patiently picking apart former champion Jamal Hill en route to 3 knockdowns and a wide unanimous decision victory that was 50-45 on 2 of the 3 scorecards. Despite lusty boos in round 4 from the Baku crowd, the thinning Baku crowd, for the lack of action, how impressed were you overall by 35-year-old Khalil Rountree's performance?
Pretty impressed. Not hugely impressed, but I don't want to sit here and say I thought it was some kind of letdown. I don't think that's right. I think actually in general it was good, commendable, and otherwise serviceable. I did not walk away floored, nor did I necessarily walk away with the feeling that whatever chances he had at getting a title surged, like, oh, I have renewed confidence beyond what I had seen previously that, there's enough here to make me think he can unseat the champion. I would not dismiss his threat, but again, it didn't change the way that I had necessarily calculated the threat that he has. It's a real, but I think somewhat remote threat, and I stay in that place. Nevertheless, we had talked last week about what he was writing heading into this fight, and we were saying it's kind of strange that here comes Rountree off of a fairly brutal stoppage loss in the way it actually finished, and yet he's the one riding momentum into this. He's the one riding, like high and renewed and with like vigor and a pep in his step. And I did think you saw some evidence of that. He hurt and wobbled and rocked and battered to a degree Jamal Hill not the first round, but in virtually every other round, he did that to him. He didn't do much necessarily beyond that each round. It was kind of weird, right? BC, there'd be these like clear, good, punctuated moments where he would leg kick him and you would see, Jamal Hill try and get his balance, or he got dropped a couple of times. And there were flash knockdowns. He got up pretty quickly, but, memorable, punctuated, dominating moments, and then not necessarily a ton on top of it. However, as he indicated in the post-fight presser, BC, he had said, listen, I wanted to make good, smart decisions, get the W, but also showcase, that I can win over the course of a long fight and I can make good decisions and not, make mistakes. Fair enough. I thought he accomplished that. So it sounded to me, BC, like the mission that he had set out for himself, he did. And that the confidence that we had detected in him that he said he had, I think showed up. I just can't say, wow, I'm learning about Khalil Roundtree for the first time. I feel like he is now turning in what I kind of always thought he had in him, and it's great to see, but not necessarily like blown away by it. Still 2 thumbs up on a very quality performance.
It's weird. It plays into some things that I have an issue with Roundtree, especially when he faces more elite opponents, is that he doesn't throw enough strikes. But in this case, it worked perfectly because he worked from the outside. He brutalized Jamal Hill's leg. And really what he exposed with his constant stance switching was that Jamal Hill in the orthodox stance, right? They're both southpaws after Jamal Hill was forced to protect that right leg. He just wasn't effective striking. He didn't have that base to throw punches off of. He was only throwing 1 punch at a time. So it almost it leads me to say this. Look, you and I both picked Jamal Hill somewhat confidently. As much as, yes, I did see the evolution of Roundtree's IQ in his mind. He wasn't there to be hit. There wasn't a point where he just switched on the crazy brawling and gave Jamal Hill a chance. He won on his own terms. But I almost feel like in the process, it exposed Jamal Hill more than it showcased Roundtree. And now you've got everybody going, was Jamal Hill ever that good to begin with? Or is that victory over a 40-something Glover Teixeira after they, tried to find other people to fight for that title? Are we seeing the complete limitations here on full display? I mean, Luke, I got to get your take. How disappointing of a performance was this from Hill, who didn't even really have that urgency in round 5 when his corner was like, you need to go in there for a KO? It's still 1 punch at a time.
Dude, did you see that Hill thought, so he goes to his corner after the 4th round and they're like, he gives his cornerman a look when his cornerman's like, he might be up. And he was like, incredulous at the idea.
Same thing when they read the decision. He was like 50-45. What?
Yeah, and I'm like, dude, I could see 1 round for him, 2 if you were being like outrageously generous. But even that is like not justifiable, and certainly 50-45 was justifiable. I mean, I think Jamal Hill's got a couple of problems. And listen, here's the reality. And he might see this and get mad because I think he just kind of does this thing. But I promise you, dude, I don't get any joy out of getting out here and being like, oh, Jamal Hill performed bad. It doesn't. I'm not out here trying to score points or settle some kind of thing. He's done nothing bad to me. I don't have any ill will towards him, and I don't know if that's going to matter. He might still get mad, but I mean that sincerely. And I hope if he does see this, I hope he sees this part of it. I got nothing against the guy in anything beyond what I'm just talking about here, but he does seem to me have 2 pretty big problems. The first problem is the biggest one, which he just doesn't seem to have the requisite self-awareness. And I think allowing himself to be comfortable with the idea that there are things not great about what he does. And like, it's okay to see yourself in a positive light. It's okay to big yourself up. In fact, those are important and he should do those things. But if you do it to such a degree that you have a hard time engaging with your limitations, how is it benefiting you? That's the first thing I'm going to say. The second thing I'm going to say is, guys, I mean, the reality is this: if you want to be, if you want your A skill to be your boxing, both defensively and offensively in MMA, again, no problem. But if you're a headhunter, that's an issue. And B, if you can't really get it going because the delivery system that you use to get into and out of position, which is your footwork, is really holding you back, you just have to reflect on that and be honest about it. You have to say the footwork it's a problem for him, man. It's a problem. It's getting him into trouble because he overcommits. Dude, that fight could have been much worse. I mean, the reality is a lot of times what you see from Hill's got good vision and good reaction timing. He actually has very good timing. based on what he does in certain ways. You could see he was just a little bit short with some of those counter check hooks over the top, but his timing was there. The placement was a little off, but the timing was there. He actually is pretty good about that. But the reality is his feet are often in the wrong place, or what you saw with Yuri would slip and then counter him. He would turn defense into offense. Dude, Roundtree let him off the hook. There were many times Roundtree was either evading big time or getting out of the way, and you could see was loaded up for a huge counter, but played it a little bit safer, obviously, to get the dub, which I don't have a problem with. But this is what I mean about Hill. Hill kind of got a reprieve with that. He had nothing to say about getting his leg battered other than switching stances, but that didn't really serve his defense. His defense is kind of low. One hand is chin, one hand is floating, whereas Khalil has both hands, up. His guard is up at around eye level, and that enables him to catch and then shoot a little bit better. He just seemed like everything was tighter, smoother, more put together, because I think Khalil's probably spent a little bit more time engaging with his shortcomings. I think Hill has some questions to ask himself. I do think he has ability, yes, but these bigger problems, BC, are holding him back, and I don't think there's anything else you can say to the contrary.
And it's like, I don't want to take away from Roundtree. It was a smart, full, nicely executed win. He made adjustments in round 4 by starting to throw those looping lead shots, and he was landing at will on Hill. I just don't think that game plan of such low output from Roundtree will work against most elite light heavyweights. It just worked perfectly here, probably because he battered that leg so early. But Luke, it's like we both said Hill just has more ways to win. We think he's the better fighter. He took that belief away from me, unfortunately. So what do you make of Hill after the fight, being incredulous about the scores, and then cornering Roundtree to the point where Herb Dean, the referee, was trying to kind of get nervous, trying to separate them, and essentially, I think, accused Roundtree of running or not engaging. And what the TV cameras picked up was Roundtree said, "You're not easy to read. I have to protect myself." Again, that just seems to fall into the damn, Jamal Hill didn't just not have it here, dude. He didn't have anything in this fight.
Yeah, and again, kind of harassing your opponent after you had 25 minutes to do something about it, and now you're in minute 26, you've got an issue. It's just not, this is not the kind of thing champions can do. And you could say, oh, what do you know? Fine, disagree with me, but show me which champions over time. I mean, dude, GSP was a champion because he was keenly aware of his limitations, because he was keenly in tune with the things he needed to get better at. And a guy who wasn't that keenly in tune with his defense or his shortcomings, at times he was, but at times, most times he wasn't, is BJ Penn. And look at the difference, dude. Look at the difference in how uneven the results are for Penn versus a guy like St. Pierre. You can't say that Penn's not talented, but if you're not willing to look at the things you're holding you back more honestly and more openly, then they will continue to be the things that hold him back. You're going to continue to have long looks and surprised faces at decisions you don't understand, and judges making reads you don't get. And of course, BC, the reality. You can retreat behind that. Oh, the judges did me wrong. Oh, the fans don't understand me. Oh, it's me against the world. You can find a place to hide in all of that, but none of that is going to make you better. You simply have to look at it. And I know it's not easy. I know it's not easy if you're a prize fighter to sit there and say, I'm bad at this kind of a thing. But one thing I noticed, BC, this is a small other thing, is I noticed, because I have the same problem, and although I work on it pretty actively, he's got super flat feet, Jamal Hill. And that just leads itself to all kinds of orthopedic injuries if you don't treat it. It's to me, no surprise, that he had an Achilles issue. I think these things are all positively correlated. Is he doing anything about that? This is what I mean. There's just so much that I think he's got something to build off of. That's real. That's not a mistake. He's got something to build off of there. But if he's unwilling to look at the things that are holding him back, I don't know how much more he can build.
Yeah, I think he needs to get in the best shape of his life. You know what I mean?
He didn't look to me in bad shape. Did he? Did you?
Well, I thought in the picture we showed during fight week that it was an improvement, but
he's always got a little belly. But I
he's got a little dad bod going, which isn't impossible for a light heavyweight to have that.
Yeah.
And you don't, and that's not the judgment zone between if you're good or bad. I just feel like he's kind of hit a wall now. Not only do I think bringing in maybe a new look into camp, trying to round out his game. I mean, they had said on the air that him and Roundtree both don't have a career successful takedown in the UFC. I think some changes are meant to be made. And one of those might be, let's get in the best shape of your career and see what happens because of that. See what that unlocks and opens up in your game. What unlocked when this fight started was the mass exodus from the Baku crowd at 2 a.m. Here's the shot of a fan inside the arena here. after Yikes. I mean, that was live on ABC right there. Baku at 2 a.m.
That's insane. That's insane.
Now, there were a lot of locals on that card, and one of them who had a huge night was Rafael Fiziev in that co-main event. We said this might be the best fight on paper coming in, as Fiziev at lightweight welcomed Bahamondes, Luke, who was looking, and that, of course, for the biggest win of his career, as he was streaking coming in on a 3-fight win streak, as Fiziev, although there were circumstances involved, came in on a 3-fight losing skid. But at the end of the day, 30-27 Fiziev across the board against Ignacio Bahamondes, who did start to land some shots in that third round, but he had to deal with that trademark Fiziev elusiveness to get out of the way of his kicks. Luke, Fiziev said after that second Gaethje loss, in which he took the fight on 6 days' notice, that you'll see the difference in his next fight with a full camp. What do you say about full camp Fiziev and how he essentially just took away everything that makes Bahamondes dangerous here in a shutout decision win?
Yeah, we weren't sure how it was going to play out because, as we indicated, there was a height advantage for Bahamondes as well as a reach. He had both of those, which is bigger in boxing, bigger in kickboxing potentially. Sometimes it's hard to know exactly what that means in MMA, and that turned out to be one of these scenarios here. I thought Fiziev looked good, BC. And some of the things that we had said about him, I think, in generally proved true. It's like, okay, he lost twice to Gaethje. That's not great. But the loss to Gamrot, that fight was still very early, and he was doing well in it before he got injured. You basically only really lost to one guy. Granted, 3 losses in a row, hadn't won since 2022, but there was another sort of picture of quality there. And I think that showed up here, BC. Once you saw Fiziev get the range and figure out what Bahamondes was throwing, you saw him kind of plant his feet and then just get out of the way of stuff and then counter. And he used his explosion, speed, combination work at times, body kicks.
Too. Nice time takedowns.
The reality is this, though. It's like, first of all, for Fiziev, getting back in the win column, critical. Second of all, doing it with, a relative, not a huge amount, but a relative amount of style. There's a bit of a confidence building performance. Very, very important. These are all critical things. But again, did that teach me a lot about exactly where he is at the top of the division? No, it tells me he's definitely still a top 5 guy, or, right around that for me. But that Bahamondes probably has a little bit further to go. The issue to me was really more about what I learned about Bahamondes, not so much what I learned about Fiziev. And to me, like, for example, BC, like, the thing I wasn't sure about with Bahamondes before this fight was he throws a lot of stuff, and I wasn't sure how strategic it was. Like, he likes to be active, and then through that activity, things emerge, and then he likes to follow up on them. So, for example, he might throw a 1-2, it doesn't score, someone, rolls off, he grabs their head and goes for a knee, right? Like, he just reacts to that knee based off of how the situation unfolds. But Fiziev denied that a lot to him. He never let him get going. And as a consequence, there was never anything to build. More to the point, Bahamondes just throws a lot of stuff to throw without really thinking strategically about it. How many times did you see him throw a spinning, different varieties of it, but basically a variety of a spinning kick, never even to the body? They kept going to the head. This guy is built to plant his feet and lean to get out of the way. Why are you spending 3 rounds throwing kicks that are never going or highly unlikely to land against a guy like this? It's a bit of a fight IQ issue there.
Well, he was spamming his jab too. It was just like 5 feet away.
It wasn't even hardly. I mean, there was. I think the second round he kind of sat behind it a little bit, but there's a lot of times, to your point, he's just reaching, and that's fine. You can probe with it, but you got to vary it up too. He was just kind of probing with it the whole time, and this is what I mean. It looked to me like, is Fiziev coming or going? Is Nacho coming or going? And it looked to me like Bahamondes still a lot to be excited for, eager for the fight, has offense in a lot of places, but doesn't have a lot of systemic thought given to what he's doing, doesn't have a more organized game. Fiziev does, and that, you can see what the difference looks like.
I know.
Along with that foot speed and explosivity that he's got.
The guy that had such a disadvantage in height and length, he never stopped moving. So full camp Fiziev does matter. He never gave him a solid target. And then the fact that he mixed.
No, that's not true. No, that's not true. He moved a lot. No, go back and watch. He moves a lot in the first round, and then at various other places, you'll see him pick it up. But as that fight gets longer, what you actually notice is Fiziev stops moving, plants his feet.
The trunk movement, though, picked up
Yes,
from there.
yes. I'm sorry. Yes. I meant to say he's not like, constantly going laterally,
Sure.
whatever. He would stop and then get out of the way and be just outside that range. And that's what kind of frustrated me about Bahamondes is like you're measuring him and then you're throwing these spinning kicks that aren't even coming close. There's got to be a better way,
Absolutely. It was an experience gap ultimately in the end. Here is Fiziev talking about what he wants next at 155 pounds.
In my mind, first one after this tall guy is Dan Hooker. Yeah. He's a one more tall guy, and I like to fight with tall guys.
Do you expect the same war with Dan Hooker because he also loves the bloody fights like you?
Man, he's a man. How many crazy fights he have, and he deserves one more crazy fight. And he have a place now. I don't believe this place when I'm lost to Gamrot, I don't lost that place real, It's my injury, and so this place now he hold, I won't take it back.
Luke, I'd be down for him and Hooker.
Let's do it. Sounds like a great bout. What is there to dislike? Let's make it.
Let's keep going down the card. There were 12 fights in all. By the way, only 2 ended in a stoppage. It turned out to be the 3rd longest card in terms of time in UFC history in Baku on Saturday. But Luke Thomas, quickly on this matchup, we thought for 34-year-old Curtis Blades, it might be a stay busy fight against PFL alum and the debuting Rizvan Kuniev. But dude, Blades got lit up in this fight and was almost not lucky, but fortunate to come away with a split decision win. Is he on the wrong side of it at 34? What happened here?
Well, I think he tore his MCL. Isn't that what he said?
I did not hear that part then.
He injured his knee and he was just trying to survive out there.
I remember he said that. Yes, he said that in the interview after. Yes,
so if that's true, then I think I can look the other way because I still think highly of his ability and his movement was weird. And I'll be honest, I thought Kuniev won the fight. But if it really is an injury that explains it, and again, I'm saying if, I don't know for sure. I'm taking his word for it. But to the extent that that's real, I still think Curtis Blades, I still think he's got known weaknesses, right? It's not like a thing we've never seen before, but BC, I still believe in his ability to do well if need be against good opponents.
All right, let's talk about Mike Tebek Orabali. Did I say that correctly?
I think it's Mike Tebek or Mick Tebek Oralbai.
Oralbai, thank you. He takes on another debutant in Tofik Musayev, who was on a great run and certainly has a respectable background coming in. Luke, this was a dominant first-round submission win, but I think Oralbai missed weight by something like 10 pounds. So Oralbai coming off that absolute brawl with Rebecki that was insane, but he lost it. Now he looks like a killer and a future killer, Luke. How much do you take away from the weight miss? 10 pounds, dude? 10 pounds?
For Oralbai?
They agreed to a catch weight at the last minute. So it might have been on Oralbai's end, but he technically didn't miss weight. It was on
Oralbai's.
I was going to say I didn't understand it in those terms either. I'll tell you what, dude, Oralbai, he looks pretty fucking good. He looks good, dude. Tofik Musayev is a hammer, a limited like all guys are, but Oralbai just took the fight right to him, made a good decision. It's like, I'm not gonna strike it out with this guy longer than I have to. And he does strike it out with him some, obviously, but then takes him down, establishes the threat. He gets back up, takes him right back down. And again, he's got a variety of these takedowns that they look pretty good. And the way he passed from half to side, stepped over the head. I'm telling you, folks, once they step over the head, it's a fucking wrap. And he got it and had that guy screaming in pain. And he did this in the first round, dude. Mike Tebek Oralbai, that's a name to pay attention to. He looks like the real deal. Yeah. Oh yeah. Is there any question about his courage in the pocket? Zero. So keep an eye on him. I like what I'm seeing from him.
All right. The Ray Longo and John Wood trained and Merab Dvalishvili teammate Nazim Sadikov had a hell of a performance in an absolute war, improving to 11-1-1 overall, 4-0-1 in the UFC, taking on a very game Nicholas Mota with Rashad Evans in his corner. And after 2 action-packed rounds, we had a brutal knockout. How bright is Sadikov's ceiling now moving forward?
I think that his ceiling is, I don't know. I'll say this. That was the best fight on the card. It was thrilling. And I was so impressed with his survival ability. And dude, did you notice the rampage rolls he was doing? Right, where you're supposed to grab behind the head, but you can just kind of go to the ear if need be. You know, did you see that in the first round when Mota is like just hauling off on him, dropped him? It seemed like for a moment he recovers, then puts it on him, and then finishes him off in the second. You know, it's hard to say exactly what the upside of something like that is, but you know, if you had any question about his mettle, if you had any questions about his durability, if you had questions about what kind of bearing does he show under fire, a bunch of those got answered. And that's all part of a bigger piece of the puzzle. We need to see some of those other pieces. But as far as those are concerned, check, approved.
Yeah, his only blemish is an all-action draw with Slava Claus Borshov. So he's really coming together. He's got a great team behind him. Long Island Luke, quickly, we got a loaded show. Anything else on that undercard that you and I were watching in the 8th row with Gaff on Saturday? In the main
By the way, longest 12-round fight card in UFC history.
12 fight card, you mean?
Yeah, I mean, there's been longer fight cards, but for a card that had 12, this was the longest.
I want to give a shout out to Sekyung Ko for upsetting Oban Elliott. I feel like no one was really on.
Dude, 30-27 him, no less.
He looked good on the ground, those wrestling exchanges and shit. But yeah, no, this card was pretty bad. I'm not gonna
It was
lie.
ass, right? It was butt cheeks.
It was really bad.
There you go. There you go.
I gotta say, dude, I thought, you know, I mean, we kind of been over it already, but it's just worth mentioning because I do those watch-alongs, so I have to turn the volume down. I don't wear an earpiece. I have a speaker right here, BC, outside my monitor, and so I have to turn it down so I can barely hear it, but I can hear at least enough to absorb the bigger points. And it seems suspiciously quiet. And then I went back and I listened afterwards, and I was like, no, it wasn't how low my volume was. There just wasn't a crowd. It was insane.
Well, they also had crazy audio issues. It would go out for 2 seconds randomly all the time.
Yeah,
but
well,
yeah,
that's ESPN. I mean, I don't know what
I mean, it's a debuting crowd. We also had a lot of Bisping on that broadcast. I mean,
he is chatty. He's chatty.
Oh God. All right, Luke, we got to keep this show moving. 10 minutes away, by the way, from special guest Brian Norman Jr., the unbeaten boxing welterweight champion under the Top Rank banner, who's going to slide in following his breakthrough victory. But Luke, you know what's hot out there? Good Lord, it's like record temperatures in most of the country, including the Northeast right now. You got to have a deodorant that has your back. You got to have something like Mando deodorant plus sweat control solid stick. Why? Because it's double protection, folks. Finally, you get the odor control that you love with Mando plus powerful sweat control. You can get it right now at shopmando.com by using our code COMBAT with a K, and you can get ready to experience the double protection of Mando deodorant plus sweat control. You know, I'm already using the spray, the cream, but when you get that sweat control solid stick during this type of weather, you're getting clinical strength sweat control. You're getting deodorant re-engineered to stop odor before it starts. And Luke Thomas, when you can control both sweat and odor for 72 hours, and after just 12 hours, your underarm sweat is reduced by 92%, you know at the end of the day that Mando works, and it ain't gonna, the sweat ain't gonna get in the way of your game, if you know what I'm talking about.
Let me just say this. Could I bring up the fact that you have premium ingredients with Mando? Yes, I could. Could I bring up the fact that you have double protection, as BC indicated? Yes, I could. But I'm going to make it much simpler for you. You know who likes Mando? And when I wear and use Mando products, my wife.
Okay.
She says I smell great and my clothes don't have ridiculous stains all over them. And by the way, there's a heat advisory here in your nation's capital today. Mando couldn't be more important than it is today. Wife, or in your particular case out there, girlfriend, significant other approved. My wife loves Mando. And I got to tell you, if she's happy, I'm happy. That is the ultimate seal of approval for me. So here's what you're going to do. Mando's starter pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid stick deodorant, as BC has indicated, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice, like a mini body wash or deodorant wipes, and free shipping. As a special offer for our listeners, new customers are going to get 20% off site-wide with our exclusive code. So here's what you're going to do, boys. Use the code COMBAT, that's COMBAT with a K, at shopmando.com, 20% off site-wide, plus free shipping, shopmando.com. Please support our show, of course, and tell them we sent you. Mando's got you covered With deodorant plus sweat control, say goodbye to sweat stains and hello to long-lasting freshness.
There we go. Whoop, there it is. Shout out to our friends at Mando. Let's get into topic number 4. Brian Norman Jr. on the way, but let's talk a little bit of boxing right here. Canelo Alvarez and Terence Crawford. They're going to throw down September 13th on Netflix, Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas. The first, I guess, fully promoted Zuffa boxing card, although that was the co-promoter for Mayweather McGregor, and we've seen Dana of late with Tom Loeffler and company, but this is much bigger. 2 of the 3 stops on the global press tour took place in the past few days. The first one in Riyadh on Thursday, and on Sunday at the Fanatics Fest in New York, we not only had an appearance from Dana White, Dana announced that Max Kellerman would return to boxing, would be on the call. He also spoke at the press conference. And then you got Turkey tweeting out a picture of Lampley and Kellerman, which is teasing who could be calling that fight. But Luke, we learned a lot. I think we learned a lot from these 2 pressers. Some of it was weird. There was a lot of Turkey involved. But what were your biggest takeaways for a fight that's being billed as the biggest in a decade, now that we have seen Canelo and Crawford face off twice, talk a little bit of trash? In fact, let's show the video of the face off on Sunday, and then we'll get Luke's reaction here. Bud did rush up against Canelo. You can see the size of Bud right there. He's bulking up. Then you get a Canelo push. Some people were saying, oh, they're laughing, it was a chummy push. Other people are saying, look at the intensity in Canelo's face. Dana was loving it. Luke, what did you learn about this fight from the 2 stops on this press tour?
One more to go, as you indicated. I would say I have mixed feelings about it. On the one hand, as you indicated, great to see Max Kellerman back. I think he can only add gravitas and make the broadcast better. So I'm happy to see that he's back and getting some work. I mean, he was definitely out there simping for Turkey and Dana, which is funny because I've heard him speak about UFC pay before, but I guess all's well that ends well.
Oh, dude, he called Dana the greatest promoter of his lifetime, and he was ball gaggling on Turkey, but that's his new boss, Luke. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean they're cutting the check, so I guess they get to see how you tap dance for it. But in any case, I do think he's going to be great for the broadcast, and I'm glad to see him back. So that's cool. I'm glad they're doing a media tour. I think that's good. It definitely seems like some people are getting hyped up because of it. That can only help. But I just can't help but feel like with all the money that's going into it and all the promotional effort that's going into it, I appreciate they're doing a lot of promotion for it. They put out this new GOATS podcast. You know what I mean? They're doing a multi-city tour. They're just talking to the press everywhere they go. They were at the Fanatics Fest, whatever it's called, in New York City, that big convention. You know, they're out there making the rounds, and I think that's all going to be a big deal. Being on Netflix can only help. But as you indicated to me, BC, you know, you heard Turkey kind of apologize to a big executive at Netflix during the course of this press tour stop, which I thought was, you know, essentially confirming the reporting on this, that like Nick Khan had to rescue it. My biggest takeaway, BC, is I appreciate that this fight is happening. I appreciate the money that they're putting into it. And I also appreciate the work that they're putting into it, going on these press tours. They look nice, engaging with the fans, engaging with the media, getting people excited about it. 2 thumbs up for me in general on that. On the other hand, BC, I can't quite get rid of this nagging feeling that it all feels a little forced. The push feels a little forced. The matchup feels a little, you know, I'm happy for it, but it doesn't feel like the natural fight for, frankly, either of them. It's kind of being thrust together. That their beef, you know, they were seeing eating with each other, and then the boxing world got bitter, and now they had that push. You know what I mean? Like, so it sounds like I'm just being a hater and a complainer. I promise I'm not. I'm excited about September. I'm excited about Max Kellerman. I'm excited about this fight. But do you get the nagging feeling that it's just a little, like some part of it just doesn't feel organic? They're trying to force it. And some of that just isn't quite clicking for me.
I can understand that. And as you said, it was interesting to hear Turkey confirm that it took Nick Khan to save this fight being on Netflix and talking Turkey into it. And then he apologized to Bella Netflix, as he called her, the CEO there, and basically said, sorry, but I'm doing this on Netflix because of Nick Khan only. That was interesting. Let's pause this discussion because we do have a very special guest coming in, and I'm talking about the 24-year-old unbeaten WBO welterweight world champion. They call him the Assassin 2. Georgia's own Brian Norman Jr. on Morning Combat. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. All right. Brian Norman,
I
Let
like
me
I like
start.
that intro. I like that intro.
Yeah, get fired up with us right here. 4 days removed from going to Japan and spectacularly knocking out Jin Sasaki with a left hook from hell, hitting his head on the canvas. And boy, do we have a lot to talk about your future. But I want to talk about the past. Where did you come from? You seem to just drop into boxing. You became a world champion. You look like a finished product at age 24. I know you've been grinding for years, but I look at you as a refreshing addition to not just the welterweight scene, but American boxing. Welcome, Brian Norman Jr.
Welcome. But I am not a finished product at all. I just want you to know that. This was just me introducing myself to the whole world out there in Japan as well. Shout out to Jin Sasaki, but things had to be done. I had to keep living my legacy and making a name for myself.
I mean, just 24 years old right now. You've improved that record all the way up to 28-0 with 22 KOs. So let's start right here. What are you bringing in your eyes to the welterweight division that is not there? What makes you special among the elite at 147?
The plain old love of the game. A lot of people now, I don't see the real deal love or passion and just straight up throwing hands. At the end of the day, that's what boxing is about. You got guys over here saying, look at my clothes, look at what I got on. You got guys over here saying a whole bunch of just unnecessary stuff. I don't care about what you're driving. I don't care about what clothes you're wearing. I don't care about the women you're around. Can you throw these things? Put your dukes up and let's lay down. That's all I care about. And a lot of guys, they not on that. A lot of people not real deal world champions. They get their belts and they go home and they try to protect it right there in their little pocket. No, I'm a world champion. I'm like Thriller Manila. I'm like all of those great fighters in the past that fought everywhere. Marvin Hagler, Alimenta, fighting in the UK. Kell Brook and Errol Spence, UK once again. So it's fighting worldwide instead of just fighting right here down the street, around the corner, on the block. You feel me? So I am trying to show everybody I'm a true world champion.
Brian, so let's talk about that left hook that polished off Jin Sasaki. He jabs you, you jab him to the body. Then he wants to get it back for some reason and jabs you to the body, and then you saw it there. Were you baiting that left hook? Did you know he was going to react that way? Talk me through how that KO happened.
I knew exactly what he was going to do. It actually started the day before. I was sizing up Jen, and I seen he look up to me. I don't know if it's my energy or something, whatever the case may be, but I seen that he look up to me. He look at where I am at, regarding being a champion, how I carry myself or something. And when we were taking pictures at the weigh-ins, I would literally see him look over, see what I'm doing, and do the exact same thing. So I knew for a fact he will copy me. So in the first round, I peeped his game plan off top, jab to the body. That was his whole thing, jab to the body. I seen when he come back up, his hands is down. He's not on point. He's not ready. I said, okay, cool. I can use that to my advantage. Then, surely enough, fifth round came in, and he got away from the game plan, was a jab to the body. And I done found myself, found my rhythm, found my range, and boom, I jabbed it to the body just to remind him. So he copied me, and he went right back to the jab to the body. He didn't even wait on it. He didn't feint anything. And then, of course, he came right up into it, and you see I was ready.
When you hit him, I often hear from prize fighters when a clean KO shot lands, they can barely feel it, even though it's super powerful because the transfer of power is so fluid. Did you feel the same? Was it just the cleanest shot you've ever landed?
Oh yeah, it felt like I just swatted a fly or something. Like my hand just flew through him, and I will say it was a scary visual because if you watch the fight back, I was locked in on him the whole time. So after I hit him, I'm still looking at him. He was standing up with his eyes closed. I'm walking towards the corner. I see him falling back. I see his head hit the mat, and I know that wasn't right. I heard that loud bang. I heard everything about it. Gladly, he's okay now.
Did it scare you a little bit when I think it was his coach or his corner was saying he doesn't remember the last 6 weeks? I mean, that's a devastating punch you landed, man.
Shoot, it scared me before that. So after all the bowing and celebrating I was doing, I seen him slide the stretcher, and I'm thinking, okay, he's finna wake up in a minute. I take my gloves off. That took a good little minute. I turn around, he's still asleep. So that's when it started setting in. Okay, this real. This ain't a regular knockout. This hey, it's one of the ones. So I was definitely worried at that point.
Brian, when you delivered that knockout, I didn't think you could do better than that until you got in the post-fight interview and really gave a nice sort of cryptic, I don't know, call out or a slant over at unbeaten Jaron Boots. And that's a fighter, the former unified welterweight champion that we have a lot of respect for, who just announced the move up to 154. You said he put on his boots and run, basically. But I feel like boxing Twitter's like, hold on. Didn't Brian Norman turn down 1.7 million to fight Boots that one time? Could you give us the true story of what happened here? Did you have a chance to fight Boots? What went on?
So now with that, they was trying to downplay who I was and who I am and trying to lowball me. So even with the one we said we do like that number, but it's over there in Philly. So you can we're gonna give you two options. You can either move the fight over, or you can move the fight right there. Just bump up the numbers a little bit. They said no to both. Said okay, cool. Then a few months later, they fight in what's my dude's name, Stanionis, and they gave him the best of both worlds. They gave him more money plus moved the fight over. And a lot of people like to try to say, but it was my biggest paycheck. You better accept whatever they give you. Stanionis got paid less than I did in my previous fight before that as well. So how does he get paid more than me? And the fight bumped over. Okay, that ain't making no sense. All right, cool. We're gonna let all of that slide. We're gonna let all of that slide. They came back with a second fight, and we said, cool, we can fight. It was right before this fight. This fight was already signed and actually official. But they said we wanted you to sign the contract before this fight, before the fight day. And we said no, we can sign the contract. We can talk about the contract literally right after the fight. I fight June 19th. We can make a call. We can talk to each other literally right after the final bell. They said no. They said I'm ducking. They said this and they said that. Okay, cool. But why y'all move up literally the week of my fight? Why did y'all literally move up the day before my fight at that? That's when Boots made the post. It was like, we were supposed to fight after this. I never said no. I just said, can I get done with this fight first?
Sure.
Then we can make something happen. I don't know if y'all remember, David Haney and Ron Garcia were supposed to run it back, but they not because he lost to Rolly. He wasn't focused on the task at hand. If you remember the whole build up to the fight, they didn't really care about Ryan versus Rolly or Devin versus Ramirez. They were just going Devin versus Ryan. You know, already predetermining what's gonna happen, and we're seeing something happen. Then you got Caleb Plant versus Charlo. That was supposed to happen, but his eyes wasn't on the prize. He was focused on Charlo instead of who was in front of him, and we seen what happened with that. So when I try to do the same and focus on fight by fight, I'm in the wrong. But when everybody else do it and they lose, now they try to down talk them and this, that, and the third. Hey, it's just me learning from my peers. That's all I'm doing. It's the reason why I came out there two weeks earlier to Japan. What's my dude name? Cool Boy Steph. He went there on fight week, and we seen what happened with him and his performance. I'm pretty sure that wasn't him at his best, but he didn't take the proper precautions or whatever. I did. I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do. I'm taking everything fight by fight, time by time, day by day. So when we sitting here right now, what's today? June 23rd. We're supposed to fight after this. We can still make that thing happen. I just want to let that be known.
Well, I certainly can understand, and I think that's wise the way you're operating on a fight-by-fight basis and giving that respect to your opponent. After Boots announced the move up to 154, I did see an interview with him where he said doctors looked over his body stats and found that he's only operating at 30 to 40% of himself at 147. How do you respond to that? And let me add on the back end of that, do you think he could have made 147 one more and fought you?
I got a question for you. Pull the panel back up. There you go. Look, I got a question for you. What does a doctor check? Like, what test do they run to say at 147 you not performing? You only, matter of fact, and give you an estimate. You only performing at 30 or 40%. What do they check?
I don't know. I never heard that before. I don't think that's
exactly.
a urine test.
Look, people, it sounds amazing. Yeah, my doctor said. So now it's off you a professional stated this, so it's a real deal thing that happened. Man, forget all that. All those doctors and everything, they just like us. They be Googling stuff. They be, look, I seen it firsthand. Somebody Googled what to do and in my face. So just because they are so-called professional, things of that nature, don't mean nothing. But also, even if they're professional, things of that nature, don't pass school and did all of that, what do you check to know that you are only performing at 30 or 40%? I want to know. I really do want to know what test did they run. Do your blood say something? I don't believe your blood say anything. Like what? How? And now if you say your nutritionist said this, I'll probably give you a pass because they saying you ain't eating enough or something like that. He didn't say his nutritionist. He said his doctor said, and he gave an estimate on how much. He said 30 or 40%. How that make sense? What test did they run? I want to know. Let me go get tested. I want to go
know
get
more about
tested.
that too.
Yeah. I want to get how good am I performing at 147? Do I need to go up or go down?
Well, lately you've been performing at 147%, it seems. Let me ask you this. If Boots is gone now, there'll be 2 belts up for grabs, but the other title holder in this division in the WBC is Mario Barrios, who has a fight coming up July 19th on PBC pay-per-view against 46-year-old Manny Pacquiao. How do you read that fight? What are your thoughts on that?
That's a hard one to read, simply because, of course, Mario Barrios is a great fighter, but also Manny Pacquiao got them calf muscles, and I know he got bricks in them gloves. So, and he a legend, so anything is still possible. I know if he land one, it's gonna do some serious damage. I mean, we seen he the only one to beat the one-time Keith Thurman, so we seen what he can do. What if you do it again? So we never know.
Yeah, let me see your left hand, Brian. You got stitches yeah. What happened there?
Sure, I got them on both hands. Actually, that's the crazy part.
Wow.
Yeah.
Talk me through that.
Shoot, broke both of my hands. I gave the boxing game my life, real deal, since 7 years old. So I broke literally both hands. So that's also something else I've been going through in my pro career. Also, so now, as you see with my past fights or whatever, my past few fights, I've been on point because now I got both hands and I'm able to operate. I'm able to train how I'm supposed to train. Literally, at one point, I couldn't do push-ups how I wanted to. I couldn't hit the bag. I couldn't spar. It was a lot of stuff that I literally couldn't do, all because of my hand injuries. And of course, with the attitude that I got, it was like I'm still fighting. I don't care about anything. So, but it built a whole lot of character. I mean, it's hard to go out there to Japan and enemy territory, not just in another state, in a whole nother country, and still put on the performance that I did. So it taught me a whole lot of character building.
Let me ask you about the state of American boxing. How would you describe the health of boxing in the United States? And if there is a problem, what is it?
Soft. That's how I describe it. Everybody's just soft, and I ain't even gonna say soft. I'm gonna say a whole bunch of fakers. Everybody, a whole bunch of characters. Everybody not being who they truly are. Like, boom, I'm right here doing the interview. If I get off this interview, I'm talking the exact same way, doing the exact same things. It's because this is me. This is who I am. You ask me all these same questions a year later, they're gonna be about the exact same because this is just who I am. I am who I am. That's it. A lot of people, they seen Floyd Mayweather and they seen how he did what he did, so they try to copy and paste the same exact thing he did. They don't realize that worked for him. That's his recipe. That's his blueprint. Let him have that. Let him bake his cake and watch it make magic. But all these other guys, they more so forcing it. I know they're not being themselves, and it's just like they are being overly disrespectful just because that's what sells fights. That's what do this. No, your performance is what sells fights. That's what's in my book. Are you putting people to sleep? Are you being entertaining? At the end of the day, I don't care if I throw a windmill, a backhand, or a slap. If I put somebody to sleep, y'all gonna love it.
Where are you now? Are you still in Georgia?
Yeah, I'm back in Georgia now.
Yeah. Well, you're from Decatur?
Yeah.
What high school did you go to?
Not with the MLK, Martin Luther King Jr. High School.
Okay, right on. I went to Marietta and Valdosta, so I know a little bit about that area. All right. Hey, how long before you're headlining at Nationwide Arena in Atlanta with a big fight? How long before that happens?
Shoot, probably soon. I mean, I'm doing my thing. Y'all see it, so I'm going global. But now it's time to take it back a little local, a little bit. Have a little homecoming or something. I mean, that would be a blessing. That would be good. But we shall see what's next for me.
Well, Brian, you're the assassin too. Your father, Brian Norman, the assassin one, a former pro himself. Did he come out of retirement earlier this year at 46 for a comeback fight? What is that like for your dad to be still in the game like this?
Scary. That's exactly what it is. It was scary because once again, he was 45 at the time. 45 ain't did a push up or nothing in like 10, 15 years probably. So it was very, very scary. But the boy bad. I see exactly where I got it from. Shoot, he was out there doing his miles, everything without me telling him. He was doing his miles, hitting the bad, jump roping this, that, and the third, eating right, eating on point. At the drop of a dime, he was on it. So I see exactly where I got all of it from, and it was a joy to see.
Congratulations to your pops right there, former light heavyweight and super middleweight, maybe not former anymore. Let's close with this. We thought welterweight was a division that needed some big names. You're establishing yourself. Boots is gone, but all those young kids seem to be slowly coming up now that they're becoming grown men. The Haney's, Teofimo's, Ryan Garcia's. We got Rolly making big news. If you could pick the next opponent right now, who would you pick? Who do you have eyes on to continue to make your name at 147?
I say besides that WBC belt, whoever wins that fight, I say Rolly, he also got a belt, so it got to be him. I mean, why would I give one of those other guys a chance when they don't even got a belt?
There it is. There it is.
Fair.
All right. Get a belt, Haney, and then call Brian Norman Jr. or whoever else. George's finest, the WBO welterweight champion, 28-0 with 22 KOs. Brian Norman Jr., it's been a pleasure to get to know you a bit. We're big fans. We can't wait to see your return, man.
I appreciate you, boss, man. Y'all keep doing y'all thing, man.
Thank you,
Good
Brian.
stuff right there from the champ, Brian Norman Jr. Yeah, that's
BC,
what I'm talking about.
BC, I need like 60 seconds.
Take your
Abuela's
time.
got an emergency. I need to go attend to
Put
it.
the camera on me.
I think I can solve it very fast. I'll be right back.
All right, let's get back into what we were doing, looking back at what we learned from the first two Canelo Crawford press conference dates. That first one in Riyadh last Thursday, yesterday in New York. I do hear what Luke said. There were elements about it that were very forced, but you are taking a fight, which is important, in my opinion, in all the combat sports, that every once in a while you got to program to the masses. This is certainly that fight, only it's not a joke fight. It really has legitimate history at stake with what Crawford's trying to do. But there's a lot of turkey involved. There's a lot of other elements involved. Let's show some footage here from Thursday where Turkey's continuing this Tom and Jerry no running threat that felt pretty serious in the moment.
Start, as I said last week, I hate Tom and Jerry's kinds of boxing. I am sure they will deliver for me smashing face and blood, and this is the boxing. I don't want to force to be having ring 12 by 12 or something like this to have something like this big fight.
Smashing face and blood. I don't know if I love that push. While I understand Turkey's basically like, we can't have the debacle that we had on May 2nd and 3rd in Times Square and then Canelo versus School. And I know Canelo's just completely blaming all of that on William School. I think some fell into his lap in that regard. But this is a fight that you feel like is two of the most skilled fighters in the history of the sport, right? Two of the all-time greats of this era. They did in that same press conference ask Terence Crawford his thoughts on that. Now, yesterday on Sunday, Terence was kind of asked the same question, and he basically said the only run that I'm going to be doing is upside Canelo's head. Here's how Bud fielded that, though, on Thursday. Let's listen.
His Excellency saying no more Tom and Jerry, no more running, but you're moving up 2 weight classes. It's not going to be smart for you to stand there and hammer it out with this guy. So how do you kind of balance that, not running, but being elusive in fighting Canelo?
However I got to fight, I'm going to win. Simple as that. I'm not going to let somebody else force me or tell me how to fight when I've been fighting my whole life. You know,
Look, I like that he said that. I know he would kind of change his tune come Sunday and say that he's going to be running up Canelo's head. And he really put out there on Sunday the idea that he's going to stand and trade with Canelo. But that's the biggest takeaway I didn't necessarily love. Turkey going so ham in this area of we need smashing blood, we need face smash, we need KO bonuses. Take that shit to MMA. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, some of the reported purses, and I think this is probably an exaggeration, but they have Canelo well above 200 million, and they have Crawford at about
250 for Canelo, 100 for
100.
Crawford. And Turkey did say this will be the biggest contract in the history of combat sports.
Yeah, and then also now you got a 5 million KO bonus. They don't give a fuck about that 5 million KO bonus. I mean, you know, people keep trying to do this bit where we're going to incentivize people with KOs. You're not going to incentivize people at this level to get out of their game plan and into a losing game plan. You know, if it works with their game plan, they'll go for the KO. If it doesn't, then they won't. It's just as simple as that. But neither here nor there. Bud Crawford can box a lot of different ways, and I like that he's saying that as well. It's just, you know, what ultimately we're going to get on fight night, I guess we'll have to see. But I think, you know, the issue for me was like actually a different one. Jake Paul was like, actually quite rightly pointed out, if you watch how they get introduced, BC, they bring the fighters on first, and then they brought the promoters on afterwards, which is usually the reverse of that. So I was like, yeah, welcome to TKO.
Oh, dude, at the Thursday press conference, they announced the fighters to come out, and then Turkey took planted questions for the next 15 minutes so he can dunk on Oscar, so he could threaten about the Tom and Jerry, so he could do a lot of different things there. Here's Jake Paul jumping in on the controversy that surrounded that pick of the two fighters last week eating with Turkey. I have heard a lot of reports that when you're there on Turkey's dime and he calls you and he wants you to hang out in his hotel room for 8 hours, that's what you do. Jake Paul tweeting, that's some goofy shit. Imagine Messi and Ronaldo grabbing dinner before a legit match against each other. Goofy. Jake Paul, of course, back this Saturday competing against IFW. Luke, I will say on the positive here, I like the intensity Crawford brought to Sunday. I think for casual fans or hardcore ones, it reminds you that this is a real fight, or this is a real fight. Yes, this could go bad for him. This also could go very well for him. What did you make of them in that face-off? Crawford looks bulked up. He looks to be the same height as Canelo. Some people are saying Canelo had those sneakers with that extra bit of height adage there. But I felt like if Thursday felt forced, Sunday felt like, okay, this is going to be a real fight. I got a little juicy inside. I got a little happy about that. No, you?
I like that there is some degree of animosity between them, and a little bit of dismissiveness from Canelo actually is irritating, but in a good way, right? But I still just can't get past how much of it is all manufactured. You know what I mean? Like, and also, like, you know, listen, I mean, it's just who cares anymore? But the reality is, you know, this is not who Canelo should be fighting. I'm taking it. Don't get me wrong. I'm taking it. But it's supposed to be David Benavidez or somebody else. Like, it's supposed to be somebody of a similar size. And like, I just want everyone to remember, Crawford's coming up 2 at this point, but 3 weight classes really. And, you know, so again, this is why to me, BC, I'm like, sometimes the pieces of this whole thing don't fit together individually. I like what you're pointing at. I agree. It just, I don't know. To me, I haven't, it's not a natural rivalry. And so for that reason, it's not a natural feeling that I'm getting, but I don't want to be just negative Nancy all the time. And in fact, I'd be lying if I said I didn't enjoy some of these other theatrics as well.
All right, let me get your final take on this final piece of 2 quick videos here. Here's Turkey, who was upset at a few things when he sat down at the microphone. In fact, he called them out for the first question by the media was asked in another language, and Turkey jumped in and was like, no, get him out of there. We want international media only, speaking of Americans. Here's Turkey opening the presser. Let's listen to this.
Turkey, the floor is yours, sir.
I don't know why they put me here. I want to be in the side of Crawford. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim.
Is that a joke? I don't know, because we have one more piece of footage of Canelo kind of bringing that back up later in the press conference.
And I know Turkey is in your corner,
I promise you.
Look, it's going to be very difficult. He's going to be so mad that day. Believe me.
I also have this quote. I missed it. I had it up here. They just released that they just released that podcast with like Tom Brady and Dana and Shaq and then Canelo and Crawford and all them. And I think Turkey's in it too. You know, it's just fucking hilarious. But in it, he was like, you know, Uncle Turkey. That's how Canelo, in talking to Crawford, like, he goes, I know Uncle Turkey took care of you. I know he's your guy, but blah, 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 blah. So there's a little bit of this happening. But again, you know, yeah, it's cool. It's fine. It's cool.
All right.
It's
Turkey
fine.
also put out a weird new podcast where him, Coppinger, and Rick Reno sit in a hotel room and talk about the upcoming next cards. It was kind of weird, but there we go. You'll see that fight September 13th at Allegiant Stadium. Dana White was in full force on Sunday along with Max Kellerman, so things are moving quickly. Our final segment before we get into that Shiat. looks ahead at what's coming this weekend, International Fight Week. Ilia Topuria returns this time at 155 for the vacant title against Charles Oliveira, headlining UFC 317. And this storyline's look ahead on the road to UFC 317 is brought to you by Total Wireless, the official wireless provider of UFC. Get unlimited data that won't slow you down. Luke, with UFC's annual summer extravaganza upon us, which storyline has you the most intrigued heading into 317?
Oh, this has to be for me. I mean, listen, we knew this ahead of time, but it honestly feels like the retirement, however long it lasts, of Jon Jones really kind of adds to it, which is, you know what the sport needs? The sport needs a hero. Sport needs a breakout star. The sport needs something that just keeps going and rising and catches our attention. Frankly, after all that's happened, you know, June's been a better month than some of the other months this year, for sure, but it needs a palate cleanser. And I feel like we've been talking about, you know, can Ilia fight at 55 and get a belt and what it would mean for you to get a title in 2 different weight classes. But let's talk about another reality here, or at least a potential reality, I should say. One of the things that we are considering at this moment. What if he goes in there and not only just beats Oliveira, but does it in the most dramatic way and has an insane call out of Islam Makhachev? It's so far on the biggest card of the year, what could end up being the entire biggest card of the year, International Fight Week. To me, it's not just the ascendancy, a potential ascendancy, I should say, of Ilia Topuria, because, of course, if Charles Oliveira wins, this is all for naught. And by the way, if Charles Oliveira wins and gets back into the championship, BC, I think he's got a claim along with BJ, Islam, and Habib, like in that upper level, you know, maybe ahead of Frankie, maybe ahead of some of the other champions in this weight class. That's another one. But the one I'm focusing in on is turning Ilia Topuria into a bona fide new face of the organization. Can he do that by becoming a second champion, by putting it on Charles Oliveira? Can he seize this moment at a time when they are desperate for someone to be able to do that? Sean O'Malley just losing a second time against Merab, and Merab is well liked, but he's not a breakout pay-per-view star. Ilia Topuria has the capability to become that at the time when the company needs it most. I think, honestly, BC, the reality is, in certain ways, the fans almost win either way. Charles reclaiming the title has a significant amount of value. Ilia becoming the new person to become a title in 2 weight classes has significant value, but one man has the ability to put the sport on his back and take it to new heights if he can win, and that one is Ilia Topuria. I'm going to be watching closely for many things, including that one.
Yeah, you're 100% right, and I do like this card. I really do. I am excited about it. We do get, you know, a flyweight title in that co-main event, which I think is absolutely fantastic. We do get a few things that we're looking forward to, but nothing's bigger right now than Topuria. It ups the ante with Jon Jones walking away, Conor McGregor not coming through that door. And Luke, I think connected to that Islam fight, I think it's in the UFC's best interest to play into that. We kind of said, as you intimated, that like there is a scenario here that Ilia wins by stoppage and then looks to go directly to a new division. Here's Ilia, we have sound at a press conference in the past week, kind of doubling down on that idea.
If Islam becomes the welterweight world champion, for sure I'm gonna push for that shot also, and I will move to the welterweight division.
Just a reminder, this is the number 1 and 2 pound-for-pound fighters in the world, Makhachev and Ilia. They're not fighting each other. They could have to some degree. It didn't happen. But Luke, I think the story here is if this guy gets it done and you're this promotion, you go all in. Even if it's a 12-month build, you go all in on this is the super fight that fans should be fired up about. It's not bringing in an old guy. It's not doing, no, these are 2 guys in their absolute prime. They don't necessarily like each other. They're the 2 best fighters in the world. Let's go. Let's go in that regard. And imagine if Do Bronx spoils it, then we got another wrinkle in there.
That's right. If Do Bronx spoils it, then it's a whole different kind of conversation. You know, I think it'd be actually worse for the sport if he does, but it still carries, I think, a significant amount of value for Oliveira and sentimentality for the fans. But huge stakes in this main event, dude. Huge, huge stakes. Dude, the sport needs a hero. And it's like, I've said this before. Oh, but he beat all my other heroes. That's how you become a hero. you destroy all the old ones so that they can't even be your hero anymore. They force you to become their hero, for them to be your hero by virtue of their achievements, if they're high enough. And it can only work if they're the highest level. It doesn't work any other level. But if you can actually beat all these guys, you take away everything that they offered the fans and you replace it. And that's just something I've seen before. Will we see it on Saturday? I don't know, but that's on the line.
Final bit of sound before we get to the shit. This jumped off of me, actually pulled it out of the have you seen the shit. Kevin Iole sat down with Ilia Topuria, and he had nothing nice to say about Islam Makhachev at all.
Actually, I'm gonna say something that I think that is like that. That I think that it's gonna be even bigger, me against Patty, than me against Islam, because the one who that no one gives a fuck about him, that's Islam. No one gives a fuck. Even in Dagestan, when he's fighting, the people goes to sleep and they watch his fight in the morning.
So you think even at home that he's not is an attraction?
Even at home, who gives a fuck about Islam? Islam. He doesn't even know how to pronounce 2 words.
Interesting.
Luke, I gotta say, what started as just a lustful boner for you, this is the hero we need right now. We need this fight. Let's go.
It's throbbing right now, metaphorically, BC. Metaphorically, it's throbbing.
Disgusting in that regard. A very good card top to bottom. Check us out this Thursday, 12 noon Eastern time, as Morning Combat gives you a UFC 317 pregame preview with our good friend Chuck Mindenhall live from the Meadowlark Studios in New York.
Can't wait.
City. It's all Topuria Oliveira here. We're going to find out who's the real king at the 155. We're skipping DMs from Donks here, running a little bit late. Just real quick, Luke, real quick on this. Brian Norman Jr., very refreshing, saying, I would have fought Boots for career high money, but let me get through my first fight. You have any fear that Ilya's talking about Patty, talking about Islam? Is he talking about Doe Bronx too?
Do I have a fear? A little one. A little one. I would be lying if I said I had no fear. I do have some. However, I also my real feeling is the big one. My big feeling is he's right about himself and what he's about to do, and he's going to prove it. And these are going to be irrelevant questions come Sunday. But I'd also be lying if I said, oh well, it's just Charles DeBronx. Like this is some fucking scrub or something. Like it ain't. And Ilya. A little is the answer. A little.
All right. A little. All right. Morningcombat@gmail.com, where you can reach out to the show. One final reminder. Let's get going for not this Friday's fan.
I shit 5 times yesterday.
All right. Well, speaking of shit, I compiled a lot of weird videos to get Luke to make weird reactions. This one's called BC's Feces. Well, Luke shit
That's a true thing that happened, BC. I mean, at first it was logs and then it was piles, and either way, it was a lot.
At what point are we just this whole segment is just pictures of your feces? It's incredible. Hey, UFC was in Azerbaijan. Here is Merab Dvalishvili losing his shit for teammate Nazim Sadikov after that TKO of Nicholas Mota. How about that pop, dude, right?
Hey, listen, Merab is a happy guy. I wouldn't want to change it for anything.
Speaking of Nazim Sadikov, Luke, he got the double bonus after that performance and that finish of Mota. Here is him in his hotel room losing his shit.
You ready?
Whoa.
The UFC just called my phone.
Seriously?
You got a 100K bonus.
Yes! Oh. Open the door. Police. Yo, I just hit 100K. No way. I just hit 100K. You got the bonus? Oh, I just hit 100K.
Luke, was that celebration similar to you after the 5th dump or what?
Mine was more the Shawshank Redemption one, where you're just in the rain. But yeah, it's pretty similar. Good for him, man. I mean, it's going to do him some good.
Absolutely. And how about on Saturday, flyweight Tagir Ulanbekov, who took a 3-round unanimous decision over Azat Maxim. Check out his all-star corner. We're talking about Umar, Islam, Habib that have his back, Luke. If we ever do like a media MMA tournament, imagine having this corner. You know what I mean? Maybe dropping Coach Latore. This is it. This is as good as it gets.
It's the dream team, brother.
Indeed, and he did get the win. All right, keep going here. There are MMA fighters living it up in the wild, Luke. One of them is friend of the program, Long Island's own Matt Frivola on the boat, ripping a blunt here.
Is that a blunt or a cigar?
I can't. Nocita, can you give us
it's a cigar.
A definitive.
If I know steamroller, that's a blunt.
Show it again. It's got a cigar seal on it.
Looks like it might be a pre-roll. I don't know. It's hard to tell.
Pre-rolls aren't that big. I mean, I guess it could be a pre-roll, but that's a huge ass pre-roll.
Wait, I did just see it in a bigger monitor on the replay, and you're right. It does look like a cigar now that I'm looking at it.
Right. I mean, you two are incompetent. Right. That's okay.
Also in the wild is Justin Gaethje at the Fanatics Fest on over the weekend. Here's his WWE entrance.
Was it me or he had some big ass shoes on?
I don't know if I picked up on that, but did you hear Canelo when they asked him, hey, you want to promote this fight, make some WWE skits? He's like, yeah, we're talking about it. I don't know if I need this, Luke. I don't know if I need that. That's just me talking.
Yeah,
right?
So, there's a certain audience for it.
Iron sharpened iron at Fanatics Fest. Check out these two heavy hitters, Poatan and Jay-Z, Luke.
That's right. With the Timbs. Look at Jay-Z. He's still wearing Timbs $1 billion later. Impressive.
Two other very famous people came together to rub dollars. Here's Turkey Al-Sheikh and LeBron James.
Yeah, they are there together. That's a true thing.
There we go. And also a fighter in the wild was TJ Dillashaw and a scooter in which he took the L here, Luke.
Oh, man. Trying to mess up his shoulder even more. People, what are we doing here?
I hope he didn't damage the Jackson chain that he was wearing there, Luke. That would have been something.
Is it Jackson or just Jackson?
They call it Jackson, but it looks very Jackson, Jacks off.
It does look Jackson, yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Jackson, the Jacker.
It's time for your car crashes of the week, Luke. Check out this ejection. Sorry, I read
when they don't respect your entrance.
That was dancing. There was some dancing going on. It ended in a fight. That was weird. All right. Hey, Luke, tell me if this is lame or cool. Here's UFC featherweight Bogdan Grab showing off his new license plate.
I thought a while about this to do the license plate before I was in the UFC just with my name, but I was like, nah, it's too much. But after I got into the UFC, I was like, okay, now I have to do it. I have to represent the UFC. So I'm very, very proud that I'm here. To everybody that is supporting me, a big thank you. Thank you, Austria. Thank you, Romania. And thank you to the whole.
Look, UFC 1 is his license plate. That feels very...
He's not going to be a guy that complains about fighter pay. I have a feeling.
All right. Now it's time for your car crashes of the week, Luke. Let's see if this makes you uncomfortable.
Bro, are you showing me AI crashes now? What are we doing?
No, that was a chair and a person on it.
BC, are you fucking blind? That was AI computer generated fucking chasing.
I don't know, Luke. I was into
You're
it
showing me
right?
video game highlights, basically.
Sorry, Luke. I didn't mean to offend you on this Monday morning.
Damn.
All right, let's continue on with our car crashes of the week. This one ain't AI, Luke.
Marica.
All right. Let's keep it
That
going.
was better.
Here.
That one I liked.
Watch this car closely here.
Oh,
Look, he hit an airplane. You see that shit?
how often does that happen? Holy fuck. Bro, these Cessnas and shit that people get in.
Yeah.
I don't know about that, man.
Everyone was okay in the end, but that was an airplane car crash. There you
Bro,
go.
did you see the people in the hot air balloon in Brazil die?
I did. I'm not going to put it in this show.
And
I
the
don't
guy,
like
there's someone who fell out of the thing ahead of time and then just plunged to his death.
Are you sure that was GTA video game? I think that first car crash was legit, Luke.
Oh, okay. Long Island Luke. The first one he showed is clearly AI, is it not?
To be honest, I didn't think anything of it until you said that, Luke, and then I was like, yeah, it does look really fake now that you say it.
All right,
holy dick and ball.
Let's skip ahead to BKFC Texas right here, Luke. Did you see this face-off between Jessica Ai and Maria Agapova?
Gentlemen, two big name debuts in the women's flyweight division. Jessica Ai taking on Maria Agapova.
All right, Luke, right? There's a good development.
This is perfect for MMA fans, combat sports fans. You get ass and two women kissing. That is what they're there for.
I would win a decision in her debut, and now they're setting her up to fight Christine Ferreira for the title. Also, Andrei Arlovsky won his debut. They're setting him up to fight Ben Rothwell in a trilogy for the title. But here's Jessica Ai flexing on stage, Luke. Some people thought Peds, but that's impressive, right?
Dice to the socks, I'll admit.
All right. Luke, if you think the UFC's Octagon is overrun with ads, check out MMA in Mexico. Let's get your thoughts on this.
I mean, amigos, what are we doing here? This is a bit much.
Yeah, indeed. All right, T-shirts of the week time, Luke. Let's get your thoughts on these.
Hooker with a penis. Okay, that's a lot for this guy.
He looks very happy, though, to be fair. Let's go to the next gentleman.
Eat your girl out or I will. You know what? I don't think he's much of a threat in that regard, but I dig the shirt.
And finally, Luke, let's see if you own this one.
I want to count the wrinkles on your stink star. Okay, well, this is a disgusting human who should be executed and then fed.
I think he lost MK Jeopardy as well, Luke. All right. Yeah, there you go. Hey, Luke, there's a new pro wrestling finishing move off the top rope. Let's get your thoughts on it. I think that's called the Izzy, right? Yeah, there you go. All right. Yeah. Okay.
He just wanks on you and then calls it a day? That's sick.
Luke, I know it's not Thanksgiving, but I'm grateful for a lot of things. Let's watch this.
What are you grateful for today?
My massive
okay.
He should have said being unemployed because I bet that's what he's more happy about.
Does it turn you on when chicks get flatulent, Luke? Why are we even talking about this? I mean, come on.
Man, is she responsible for the stewardship of children?
I think so.
I think Child Protective Services should take them away.
It's time to have our cake and eat it too. Your favorite person's back. Only she's combining.
Oh yeah. Just eat that remote, you absolutely insane creature from another dimension.
Dude, this is our two favorite things. Weird cake lady from France.
Oh, let me guess. She's going to eat the video game too, right? Because why would that be normal? Why would this be, you absolutely insane creature from the Black Lagoon? Go back to where you came from, you horrible alien monster.
Okay. Yeah, it was aggressive. Let's go to some cake and elder abuse combos.
Granny, hold still.
Gotcha, bitch. Yeah, she got you, Luke. She did get you, right? I mean, that's what's going on here. Wow, this might be my worst batch ever here. Okay. Hey.
Her life expectancy is Thursday, and it's deserved.
Caught in the act here, Luke. Watch this bouncer.
Excuse me, sir. Are you scratching your ass in public?
No. Are you crazy? Get out of here. Get out.
What? I just saw you scratching your ass.
Bro, You're crazy. Get out.
Okay, the retching was hilarious. That was good. That was your best one yet. That was great.
All right, all right. Hey, look, you ever hear of a Tekken master before?
Years later, it would be a massive, massive statement here, but he's got to beat Motil to get the job done. And I've seen Motil perform comebacks from scenarios worse than this.
Yes.
So this is by no means over, by any stretch.
Yep.
Do not count this man out.
I think that Motil might have been a little bit surprised at the amount of aggression he has to face against Nobi, just suffocation, right?
Yeah.
Especially with the Feng, he has moves that can evade so well in that close range, like up forward two, the back kempo, the back blow.
Yeah, the upper two, great example. But what it is as well, he's able to be aggressive.
Luke, it looks like he was
Yes,
hiding.
I'm also a world-class Tekken player. Yes.
It looks like he was hiding his play so the opponent couldn't see what he was pressing, but it definitely looked like he was just rocking out.
He was masturbating. Let's just say what it was. He was jerking
Luke,
off.
we got two more for you. We know how much you love medieval Renaissance fairs and Riz. Why don't we combine those two as well? Here we go.
Excuse me. Wow, I really love your style. What's your name?
Oh, thank you. I'm Mella.
Hi, Mella. Are you like a mind goblin or something?
What's a mind goblin?
Mind goblin D's nuts, bitch. Oh, Jesus Christ!
I texted a friend of mine the other day. I was like, "Have you heard of the band Imagine Dragons?" And they were like, "Yeah." I was like, "Imagine dragging these balls across your mouth, bitch." I'm not too good for it. I'm not too good for it. And the stabbing was also a nice touch too.
Yes. All right. This has been
But
a
also,
very
if you go to the Renaissance Festival, which I'm going to have to do because Tukey wants to go now. She saw an ad for it.
Please take video of it, please, for this show's purpose.
Dude,
please.
did I tell you what Tukey did to my wife the other day?
No.
First of all, my wife says, "Hey, we need to go because I have to go to the bathroom." And my wife and Tukey's sister Aguanta tape hold it. Just tells her to hold it. And then my wife was like, "Get on your feet. We're leaving." Tukey gave her the throat slash. Tukey gave my wife the throat slash, and I was like, "Okay, we have to have an intervention here. What is happening in this kind of part? This is unacceptable."
That's wild. Well, Luke, I got one more video for you, and I don't think I'm going to get a good grade this week, but this last one combines your two favorite things, flatulence and Sweet Caroline.
Sweet Caroline.
That is the song. That's the original. Everything else is a cover of this song. That's
We're going to get
the song.
copyright struck for that. Playing
That was
Caroline.
Mr. Methane, the flatulent singer and superhero. Thank you very much. All right.
Him and Cake Lady should also be shot into the sun. Can we just be honest
I've got
about
to
that?
work on, I'm going to start DMing Cake Lady and see if she speaks English and she's willing to come on here because this will be the most epic piece of television.
I will verbally abuse her.
Okay. If she ever has a bit where she cuts a dong in half, but it turns out, it's just cake, then we got to bring it out on this show.
She's going to cut a dong in half, and it's just going to be a smaller dong. I mean, it's going to be the world's worst bit ever. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Thank you to Brian Norman Jr., the WBO welterweight champion, for joining us today. Thank you to Long Island Luke on the ones and twos. Long Island, what can we expect from you in the future?
What can your girl expect from you?
I'll be dropping UFC 317 bet breakdown today. Remember, we went perfect last week, so tune in, main card minute. Appreciate y'all.
All right. Tune in this Thursday, 12 noon Eastern time, as Cuervo presents Morning Combat UFC 317 pregame preview. LT, BC, Chuck Mindenhall. Enough said right there. All right. Luke Thomas, we had a long, but I think victorious show for the people.
We do what we do. We did what we did. I'm happy that the fans were here. Thank you all so much. Oh, yeah. I hope that pussy's beating you up. How about that?
Wow. That's the most action I've got in that category in a long time, Luke. But there we go. Okay.
Yo, you got to put that. I want to see a highlight of that cat smacking your shit.
He doesn't like to be controlled anymore. He's a teenager, I think. Morningcombat.shop for all your merch needs. Yeah. Right.
I got to pick Tukey up from her first day of summer camp.
Well, tell her I said this, Luke.
Bro, she gave my wife the throat slash. I couldn't fucking believe it. I was like, we are raising a monster, a beautiful monster, but
a wonderful monster. We'll see you guys Thursday. No show this Friday, but a big week. Get fired up. UFC 317 is here. Good. Be careful out there. It's hot. There's a war going on. Take care of yourselves. I mean, look, it's like feels like 105 today in Connecticut. It's insane.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. Stay cool.
Stay cool, dirtbags. For Luke Thomas, Luke Nocita, and your boy BC, we love you. We out of here. Thank you so much. Good stuff. Thank you.